a scheduled budget meeting. Good evening. This is a regularly scheduled City Council budget meeting. There are agendas available on the city's website. We have no unfinished business. Since we'd like to speak on citizens that would like to speak on a topic can do so after councilors have had an opportunity to speak. Citizens will be given one opportunity for comments or questions. Citizens must speak and identify themselves. Each citizen will be allowed one opportunity, limited to 3 minutes. Finally, councilors will be given another opportunity to speak or comment. And there is no public comment section of tonight's agenda. So we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance and look at Rick.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, Flavia, you showed up. You got you. All right, Patty, since you've got all of that, does anybody have a conflict with anything we're about to vote on today? All right, Patty.
Yes.
Get us started.
First item is Order 131. Is there a motion to read by title only?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Council Morris?
Yes.
Council Oliveira?
Yes.
Council Green?
Yes.
Council Foss?
Yes.
Council Frankie?
Yes. Yes.
Council Thomas?
Yes.
Vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed. Order 131, 2021, an order providing for acceptance of FAA Airport Improvement Program grant and issuance of notice to proceed.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Whoops, you're muted, Jay. I'm sorry.
Can't hear.
Gotcha. Any comments or questions from the councilors? All right. Oh, Councilor Green.
I'll just say it's a lot of money, which is great. Are there any other requirements? It says there's no local or state matching share. Nothing else is required of the city.
No financial obligations for the city. That's correct.
Okay, great.
Anyone else? All right, Patty, can I move to a roll call?
Yep. If I may, Mayor, if there's anyone in the attendees list who wants to comment or question during a virtual meeting, if you raise your virtual hand, we can allow you to speak at that time. So I just want to make folks aware of that.
Thank you, Patty.
Yep. Council Morris?
Yes.
Council Oliveira?
Yes.
Council Green?
Yes.
Council Foss?
Yes.
Council Frankie?
Yes.
Council Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed. The next item is Resolution 137, 2021. This is a resolution providing for establishment of municipal pool fees for the 2021 season.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Patty, can we move Matt in?
Yes.
While he's coming in, we do have one hand raised just so we're all. Oh, that's Matt. My apologies.
Whoops. I moved Joel in by mistake because Matt moved. Okay, here's promote to panelist. So Matt's coming in and I'm going to move Joel back out. Sorry, Joel.
Before Matt starts, I counseled him to not change the fee schedule that he had presented to you, subject to whatever changes you want to make.
Thank you, Steve. Matt, thanks for coming back.
Yeah, you bet. You can hear me.
Hopefully you're sitting in an air-conditioned room, staying cool
I'm
right
not.
now. Oh, dude, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's tough.
Any questions for Matt from the council? Councilor Frankie.
I didn't get a chance to chat with you last week, Matt, but have you thought any more about the idea of some free days or reduced fees or some other kinds of merchandising ideas for the pool?
Yes, we have some, Councillor Frankie. The Recreation Committee, which consists of Councillor Thomas, Oliveira, and Morris, met early last week to discuss rates and other ways to entice folks to get out and enjoy the pool, hoping that our numbers will pick up and people will see what a great product that we have to offer. So I'll let the councilors speak to if they will, but I think we came to a consensus that we would keep resident rates the same as they were in 2019, unchanged, and that we would propose to increase non-resident rates, including the additional slide pool fees if that's what families chose to do. We also discussed a weekend or two offering free swim, but just for residents. But I'm open to any suggestions. It's our pool, and Steve did fill me in, Councillor Frankie, on some ideas that we might want to try with other towns, and I think those are great ideas. Whether those are free swim days, I think that's what it would include if we're going to be consistent with what the Recreation Committee determined to be keeping non-resident rates or raising non-resident rates rather. So I'm open to something. I haven't completely determined or confirmed what we would do for those surrounding towns, but I'm open to doing anything that folks would like to do.
Oh, good. Thank you. I'm happy to hear that we're going to keep resident fees stationary for the time being. I really want to thank you and the pool committee for looking at ways that we could start to merchandise the pool and really start to draw more traffic in and take advantage of the fact that we've spent so much money fixing it up.
Councillor Green.
So just to clarify on the proposed pool fees for 2021, they're not going to be $5 for child, $6 for adult. They're going to stay at what's essentially 2019 rates?
Correct. The current category, right? That would be the 19 category. Yes.
Okay.
Councillor.
And so what about the pool and slide fee?
That didn't exist in 2019, so it would remain the same for the non-citizen. For the resident, but for the non-citizen, that price would go into effect for this year, and as it would go in for effect for next year, 2022.
So it's a flat fee for residents?
This year, yeah.
This year, okay. But and then what would happen in 23 and 25?
It's on the schedule. We're going to jump to the schedule that we're at now.
Oh.
Like we have to jump to the schedule that's at now in order for us to meet the obligation that we set to the taxpayers when we initiated to do this project. And that was ways we were going to make this start to break even. And it's going to take, a good period of time, 3-4 years for us to do that. So by giving up this first year of revenue, we are going to have to turn around and, start moving those slides a little bit better, those scales a little bit more on
recording
on the other
in
end.
Progress.
So
yeah, absolutely. I guess I appreciate the idea of leaving them flat.
Recording stopped.
I'd actually also be in favor of seeing them go forward. The one thing I was going to suggest was that, if we're going to stick with the flat fees this year, that's good. That's fine. It'll be a big jump, but it'll be 2 years from now. So I'm fine with that.
Listen, I'm all for having the fee schedule go in as proposed at the last meeting, and then really just stressing the fact that we do have the scholarship that's available for folks. So if they can only, afford the cost of, the pool only portion, and then they need to apply for the scholarship to, to meet the needs of the slide fee, which is, just a couple of dollars more, then I think that's what we should promote. I'm certainly happy to do that. I'm also happy to have, that first weekend, to be free for all Waterville residents. And then, I know that we're working hard right now to extend the open date of the pool, that extra week. And I would be on tap for just saying, you know what, if we're able to staff that, then make that last week, also free to Waterville residents. So I'm certainly happy to, to put that out there. That works well for me.
Can't hear you.
Councillor Green, then Councillor Klepak.
Yeah, so my thought was just to reduce that gap between pool and slide, since that is new this year. And so I was thinking, I mean, again, if we want to do flat fee as it was in 2019, great. But I was also thinking we could do like a 5 and a 7 for a child, because if you're, a parent with 3 kids and you go to the pool and they all want to do the slides, that's an extra $6, which might hurt. If we cut that down to 7, it's a little easier on everyone, but it still does, it's a great deal. And I think you have done a great job of putting together a schedule that really is doable, especially with scholarships, but also, recoup some of the expenses. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important for us to be able to do that long term. I mean, I think it really just, really just promotes, fiscal responsibility to be able to put this in a position where, we're not going to be losing money hand over fist as this, as the pool moves forward. We are year 1 into this, and, in this new quote unquote, post-COVID world. And so this year is kind of really going to be a learning experience. And, we've already got a couple of things going on. I know that we've got some advertising, which is going to be new this year. And those things are only going to, increase as time goes on. So I think that we really put together a really good, Matt and folks really put together a good business model to really run the pool, as a business, and really start to look at ways to increase, revenue, which is, what's important, because we're going to have to put money away for maintenance and, other things down the road. And to be able to have that money available just makes, these types of conversations in the future a lot easier to have.
I don't mean to cut
Yeah, Patty, can you let Eric back in?
There you go. Let Eric back in. Same spot. We were in the same thought. And it was Klepak next, and then Flavia.
Hey, Matt, thank you for being so patient with this whole process. I really appreciate you and your time. So perhaps it's been said already. Would you remind me what the estimated breakdown between resident and non-resident people at the pool is?
Yeah, it's about 2/3 residents and 1/3 non-residents.
And how presumably towards the end of the summer, most of the people that are coming to the pool are season pass holders, or what's the breakdown between season?
No, that's typically what happens, Counselor, is that mid season on toward the latter part, it's mostly season pass holders, right?
And so how much would extending the season by a week cut into the margins that you have projected? Because my concern here, I share Councillor Green's concerns with this. So appreciate Councilor Frankie's position, but my concern is that we're throwing money at a gesture that may not be incredibly impactful, and particularly if we extend the season, we're having to put wages on. So how would extending the season by a week?
I think just for our staff, it's about $3,000 a week. And then it's hard to say now with a new facility as far as chemicalization and, water and electricity, but maybe tack on another $800, $1,000. So say four grand for another week.
Okay. And it would be a week that we would be unlikely to see significant revenue at all.
This is true.
Well, I mean, my argument to that would be, we don't know because it's not been opened. And the one thing that a lot of I know for example, the Mitchell School, their camp ends, about a week and a half before that. So, there are a lot of parents out there that, are now, watching their kids as they get ready for school, having this open and available to them, which it hasn't been in the past, could just prove to be the opposite, Council Klepak, is that the fact that people will show up and, they will because they now need something to do during that week. And then, typically in the last couple of years, it's always been a hot week, you know what I mean, from a temperature perspective. And, this pool is actually even heated. So, listen, it's really going to be a great opportunity, I think, to have that and have that as a resource, within the city and for a place for people to go during that week of, where things are in transition from camps are closing to school is starting and whatnot. So.
Councillor Oliveira, then Councillor Foss.
Alrighty. So, okay. So to go back to Mike's point about the fees, and I find for me, I struggle. I'm a single mom, so I do struggle. But I find that Waterville has a ton of scholarships. So for me, I'm okay with the flat rate this year. It's more promoting the scholarship. So I've been telling parents, if you can't afford it, there is a scholarship, apply for it. That's the same thing goes with Alphonse Sumter, because they also apply, they also provide scholarships there. And I also too with Councilor Klepak made a good point about keeping it open one extra week, because for the past 2 summers, it felt like we needed that extra week. So it's because I advocated for that and I still continue to advocate. So to see if we can add 1 extra week, but with the fees, like I said, I'm a single mom and it's doable because we do have scholarships. So that was what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Councillor Oliveira. Councillor Foss.
So last year when we approved the bond, we talked about making this thing as close to taking care of itself, just like the fire department. This is no different than what the fire department's been doing. I like this. I like the fee schedule. I also like the idea of the last of adding the week, like Councilor Morris was talking, making that free to the residents. That's just one of those niceties at the end of the year. And the numbers show that it's mostly Waterville students. Unless I heard that wrong, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but they paid for it. At the end of the day, we make our money during the summertime. If it's as long as it's kind of breaking even, that's all I really wanted. I didn't want something that was underwater, no pun intended. And that's just, I think it's a good idea. So I'm on it.
All right. Any other councillors? Councillor Thomas.
Well, I apologize if I get into anything because I am not quite sure what I missed and what I heard and whatnot. I just want to point out a couple of things. One, this facility cost more than the police station did. And we only use it 2 months out of the year. And, it was a mistake last year when we approved the bond to not approve the fee schedule as well. But the fee schedule was it was part of the package that went along with borrowing that money. Is that, everybody, certainly all the counselors at the time, were under the impression that that was going to be the fee schedule that we were going to adopt when this facility reopened. And I understand wanting to do something, for the kids or families or whatever it may be, but like I said, it's a $5 million facility. It's very reasonably priced. Matt, I'm sure, remembers this is something that I've been on ever since I got on the city council. I believe at the time when I first got on the council, we were charging $1 for somebody to go to the pool. These things, we have to pay for them somehow, and it's still a very reasonable facility. And it's an amazing facility that no one around here has. And the only other option you have for something like this is to pay $35 or $40 to go to a, Funtown or Aquaboggan. I'm certainly open to ideas, but my feeling honestly is we should just move forward with the fee schedule that we had proposed. But that's it.
Thank you, Counselor. And you're right. Yeah, we've heard from you a lot over the years, and we've raised incrementally with the old facility. But if we do, it sounds like we're in a direction where, we might stick with the fee schedule as proposed, with the increased rates for non-residents. We can have scholarship forms right there at the front counter. We can have a board in front of the bathhouse that says, for those in need, for those, and we can, if people are ashamed or they're not comfortable taking a scholarship form, maybe we can do a QR code, or we can tell them to visit our Facebook page or website to find the application. I think that would be a good direction to go. Again, it's up to you.
I think that sounds great.
Councilor Frankie. And then, Patty, can we bring in Blair Sharp, who's got her hand up?
Yes.
Go ahead, Councilor Frankie.
I'd just like to comment that we're talking about around $20,000 in terms of increasing the fees. On the other hand, we just spent $35,000 for flower planters for the Main Street restaurants. That seems to me that our seems to me that the way we're looking at the way the city spends money is a little bit skewed. Let's give the kids a break.
Steve?
Correction, we've spent $6,000 for the planters.
Was it 6,000 per planter?
For all the planters.
Huh. Okay.
And we spent $5 million to build this facility. Like, it's
Right.
not $5 million.
I'm going to give Blair an opportunity to speak.
Thank you guys so much. You guys are wonderful. You guys spent a lot of money. You really did. And Matt, you guys spent quite a money during the winter time when the snow was falling. So hands up to you guys. Anyways, yeah, this pull-up's wonderful. I can't wait to get in it for the free weekend. My mom lives in Demerskata, so she's about an hour, 20 minutes away. So the thing is, if I don't know what the season pass is for this year, because you said 2019. So I like to know about the season pass. Are you going to keep the regular rate at, is it $5 if you're new Waterville resident? What is it? That's my question. And if it's 40 or 30, that was my big question.
Yeah, that's right. That's the discussion that we're having right now. It would be 30 if we kept the 2019 rates, but it would be 40 if we vote to accept this resolution. It would go up to $40 for an adult resident season pass.
Yeah, because I'm a new resident and I barely moved here. I've only been here a year on Quarry Road over here at Skills. So, and my other question was, how about group rates? Do you guys even have that yet, where a group could come, like Quarry Road or Families Matter? You know, there's all kinds of groups, I bet, like them that are adults that want to come. You know, I'm sure they would love to come, even on the free weekend, or not even the weekend, during the week.
Yep. Typically, we like to limit those group rates because, you know, as folks have mentioned, we think we're very affordable, but we're happy to talk. Over the years, we've talked to all kinds of different groups, nonprofit groups, and we've been willing in some instances to make exceptions, but we just think it's, I mean, I can stand by these rates. I still think they're very affordable, and we need to do a little better on the revenue side. So, but we will consider it.
Yeah, I get you, Matt. I know where you're at about that. I get you about the rate. But if it's 30, I can deal if I have to fill out a form. I should get my mom to do that. But I can afford. She just said 40 was a little bit too much. That's where, I know I hate saying that, where I can't afford it, but that's why I was asking about the 30, if that was going to stay the same for this year. I don't know. That's what I'm trying to ask, because I couldn't get an answer yet from the office.
Yeah, we're still waiting to establish the rates. I think that's why we're not ready to answer. But I think a scholarship application might be a good way for you to trim that down a bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna get my mom right on that when she can, because that will really help me for every season you guys open it. But it's a wonderful poll. You have done a great job in the whole city of Waterville on everything. I love it here compared to where Demerscata is. I got to say that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys have done wonderful, Mayor, too. You've done a great job on everything. You all have.
Thanks, Blair. We appreciate the feedback, Blair. We'll know more about the fee structure by the end of the meeting. You'll know one way or the other, and we'll go from there. And like Matt has said, we'll get you one of those forms to fill out so that we can try to help you out.
Yeah, if you can send it my way over to Quarry Road somehow, or I can come pick it up at the office. I'm just not sure where the office exactly is yet.
Yeah, we're on Wentworth Court, right across from Elm City Photo or Capsa's Pizza on the other side.
Oh, I know where Captain's Pizza is. Yeah. But I'll listen in. Thank you guys for letting me come in. You guys are wonderful.
Councilor Green?
Can't hear you. You're muted.
Thank you. So I was just wondering, Matt, if you, not to put you on the spot, but if we did keep resident rates the same and bump up all the non-resident rates, do you have any idea what that differential would be in terms of the first year of revenue?
I think it was not $9,000 if we kept residents the same and only raised non-residents, because again, 2/3 historically has been residents. Okay. The family season pass for the Waterville resident is our top ticket seller. Okay. Hands down.
Okay. Yeah.
And Matt, if you go to the 40, because it looks like some councilors want to do that, what is going to be the price? And I probably have it here somewhere, but I'll ask you so that the public knows. With the slides,
50.
So
that's that's for a single person. So if we want to talk about what we're going to likely sell the most of, a family season pass will go from 50 to 80. That's 4 residents in Waterville. With slides, it will be $100 for 4 Waterville residents for the summer. $100 with slides. That's a full pass.
And an individual for the
individual resident would go from 30 to 40, and then or 40 to 50 with slides.
So really, if you're paying for 2, you get you get 4.
Yeah, we want to encourage people to get the family season pass for sure.
I'll reiterate. I like Claude's idea. I think giving our residents who are coming out of a pandemic an opportunity to sort of save some money this year and get ready for next year's increase. However, I'll reiterate my desire for the season pass to include slides. I don't want the haves and have-nots kids can be mean to each other, and I'd like to not see that sort of that energy at our pools. I'd like everyone who's able to be able to use the slides to be able to use the slides. When we're talking about season passes, I'm not so much opposed when it comes to a day pass. I mean, you're here for a day. We might as well capitalize on what we can get. I am absolutely in favor of making sure that out-of-town residents pay more. Waterville has had a long-standing tradition of subsidizing other communities, and I think it's important that we start seeing some of our money back. So again, I don't get a vote. I just get to discuss what my opinions. Eric, were you looking to make a motion? You're on mute.
Well, that was going to be my suggestion rather than just going round and round. Why don't, if people have suggestions, like start making motions. So if people want to change things, make a motion. Let's see if there's a second. Let's vote on it and let's move on to the next item.
So as it stands right now, you're looking at staying at the current 2019 rates for Waterville residents in the new fee structure for. So are you looking
The resolution in front of you it includes all the increases for both.
Somebody has to offer
Okay,
amendments.
so somebody would have to offer an amendment to stay with 2019 rates for Waterville residents if they so chose. Councilor Frankie.
I'll offer an amendment to the pool fee structure that the fees for Waterville residents will remain at the 2019 level.
I'll second that.
For 1 year.
For 1 year.
For 1 year, yes.
Patty, can I get a roll call on that amendment?
Yes.
You need did you get a second?
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
Council Morris,
No.
Council Oliveira,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
No.
Council Green,
No.
Council Foss,
No.
Council Frankie.
You said yes
You-
silently.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you. Council Thomas,
No.
the vote is 2 in favor and 5 opposed.
Okay, so we're moving it forward as written.
Unless there's another amendment.
Unless there's another amendment. Councilor Green.
I have an amendment to adopt the proposed fee schedule as proposed, with the exception of waiving the higher rate for pool and slides for Waterville residents for 1 year.
So you would like to keep it at the 40?
You're talking about the season pass, not the individual day pass.
Yeah, let's do individual. Let's do the season pass for residents. Will stay the same, but they'll get the slides as a bonus.
So, sorry, can I ask a clarifying question, please, Councilor Green? We're going to go to the proposed fee, so it'll go from the 30 to 40, but for the slides this year, it won't go to 50 for the individual.
Right. So for this year, the individual season pass for a Waterville resident would be 30, including slides. For a child, it would be 40, including slides for an adult. And the season pass.
I'll second that.
80 for, okay, you get the idea.
I understand.
So can I
I'll
clarify?
second that.
$30 for the child.
So essentially, Patty, we're not going to add any additional fees. If you buy a family pass, you're not going to we're not going to incremental fee for the use of the slides. And
Okay.
that'll get added into 2022.
Councilor Green, that's for 1 year, correct? For this year?
Right. That's for this year.
Okay.
I can get
I
behind that.
continue the second.
And we're leaving the day passes alone as is.
Correct.
Okay, that's sort of what I was saying before. Thank you, Councilor Green.
Mhm.
So I've got a second on that. Patty, can I get a roll call on that amendment?
Yes. Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Oliveira,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
No.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 1 opposed.
Move as amended.
Second.
Any further discussion
Or other amendments?
or other amendments? Thank you,
Mr. Daly.
Steve.
Yep.
Just one question. Do you want to include anything in this vote having to do with free days or that sort of thing? Perhaps authorizing Matt to allow for some number of free weekends or free days, and who it would apply to? Or do you want to leave that to Matt's discretion, or not do anything at all?
I think, go ahead, Rebecca.
I would say we should, I'd be fine with leaving that to Matt's discretion.
I would second that too. So
Yeah, I'm fine with that as well. But I'm also open to, the pool's opening up in 2 weeks. So, let's make it the first one. I think it's a great opportunity to start registering people. Because typically I think, Matt, you probably start selling these things now. And we're kind of a little bit behind the 8 ball, which is okay. But I think that, opening that weekend is free. It kind of, alleviates some of that confusion and gives the people the opportunity to try it out and sign up, while they're there. So
don't forget Councilor Oliveira.
Yep. Flavia. Sorry.
Yeah, my question was, and we also talked about extending it a week for that Western week. So is that going to be included in there?
Matt?
If you make the motion.
Well, really, I've never been opposed to it, and I'm being completely honest when I say it really is a staffing issue, and we're having a staffing issue already just trying to open the pool. So we'll do our best. I would love to extend the season because, like Councilor Morris says, we know when we close, it's going to be 85, 90 degrees that next week. It always is. It never fails. But I can't. I don't think that can be formalized, Councilor Oliveira, because we just don't know that we're going to have the staff. But we're trying. We've been reaching out to Colby, to Thomas, to the AYCC to see if we can bring in enough people. Maybe it's just the slides. Maybe it's just a portion of the pool. But we'll do our best to extend for a week. We'll do our best.
Okay, thank you.
And Flavia, you're good with leaving that up to Matt's discretion again. I mean,
Oh yes,
Matt's
yes.
the one that's got to deal with the pool.
Yeah.
And I think he's doing a great job now. So, Councilor Thomas, you had your hand up. Oh, all right. Any further discussion on this? All right, Patty, can I get a roll call, please?
Yes. Counselor Morris,
yes.
Counselor Oliveira,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie.
I'm voting yes because we need to get the pool open, but I'm very disappointed that we're going to try to make money on the backs of our kids coming out of the pandemic.
Counselor Thomas,
I'm disappointed that Councilor Frankie would characterize it that way, and I'm going to vote yes.
the vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
All right.
The next item is resolution.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Have a good night, Matt. Enjoy.
Yep.
Get some AC going.
Thanks, Matt.
Send me that list.
Resolution
He's going to
140.
jump in the pool.
Sorry, Patty. Go ahead.
It's okay. Resolution 142, 2021, a resolution providing for financial support for passenger rail study.
Move to adopt.
Second.
So I will, Rick, I'll give you an opportunity to speak here in a second.
No, go ahead. Go right ahead.
This is something that we voted on a couple of months ago to support LD 227. It's something that Representative Joe Baldacci out of Bangor had put through the legislature. A couple weeks ago, it moved out of committee unanimously as ought to pass. One of the things that happened while it was in committee was the committee wanted the municipalities that were going to benefit from rail service to have a little bit of skin in the game. At one point, they wanted 30%. It went down to 25%. they have a figure between 150,000 to 300,000 to do the feasibility study. That would leave somewhere around between $25,000 and $50,000 left to the municipalities. Bangor has already discussed. Representative Baldacci has talked to the city council in Bangor, the mayor, the city manager, and they are going to pony up the first $20,000 this year. They're committed. I brought this to you guys so that we could chip in $5,000, and then as joint communities, Bangor and Waterville, we will go to all the other municipalities, Augusta, Newport, hand in hand if we have to get anyone who will benefit from this rail to chip in the difference in the balance that will be left over. Whether that be that Newport or Augusta can throw in $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, whatever those municipalities can come up with so that they can pay their share also, they will benefit. This $5,000 in the long run is going to be a drop in the bucket. If rail service is feasible, municipalities that will benefit are going to have to figure out whether or not they're going to have enough revenue to help pay for the rail to go through their system. Luckily in Waterville, we already have some rail. I think this is an important step forward so that we are able to see if passenger rail service is beneficial. In my opinion, it is. I think getting our citizens to be able to move around the state is important. I think it's important that we see if it's even possible and if it makes financial sense. If it doesn't make financial sense, well, guess what? We don't do it. But the study has to happen in order for us to figure out if that is going to be the case. I know that other reps are on board with this. I know that our own Bruce White was a co-sponsor. Much of that may mean nothing to you, but rail service and moving human beings around the state is increasingly more and more important. We want to eliminate barriers for people to get to work. It would be nice for you to be able to live in Waterville where it's cheaper, take a train to Portland where you can have a higher paying job, and then scoot back to Waterville in the afternoon. That's just my piece. I will go to Councilor Foss.
So I did a little bit of research on this from the 129th. In the 129th, they allocated $250,000 to study how to get it to Auburn. So I still don't know that there's rail service in Auburn. Your LD 227, yes, you're right. It went from 300,000 down to 150,000. I did not read it thoroughly enough to find out about the city buy-in. I'm just wondering how much more money we're going to spend on figuring out if rail service is going to work when rail service is a for-profit entity. I'm not in for throwing money, more tax dollars, our tax dollars that we're already spending at the state level, into this coffer for a profit, knowing that the rail service coming out of Brunswick going down to Portland and beyond isn't doing what they thought it was going to do in the first place, especially with most of our jobs in this area are BIW workers or paper mill workers. They are already set up with a transit system with vans and such where they have park and goes. So I'm not in for spending $5,000 of our taxpayer money to go to another $400,000 rough guesstimate so far that they've already said, yeah, let's go. I'm a no on this one. Sorry.
No, I appreciate that. Like I said, we're all going to have different ideas of how some of this work. I understand that it will be for profit at some point. We want it to be profitable. We want it to work. I think it's important for the municipalities. At one point, we had rail service that went through Waterville up to Bangor. And why they can't throw a passenger rail car on some of these other trains that are already coming up through sort of boggles my mind. I don't understand why you can't mix the two.
But let me tag onto there, and I don't mean to make this into a debate.
Yep.
As Amtrak is a for-profit company, why aren't they doing this study on their own with their own profits to see if it's going to make them money? Because other than that, we're going to subsidize something that's not making money. I get your premise between moving people back and forth. I understand that, but Amtrak has got to get into this game. If they want in, they should be doing putting the money down for the study.
So I agree that some of these other entities need to start ponying up some money. They're currently not. Amtrak doesn't own all the rails going up. And in fact, we own some of the rail. So for our portion, I think it's important for us to, again, studies cost money. Somebody has to do the study. They're not doing the study. And I think that it's incumbent upon us and some of the residents, if you want this sort of service, you're going to end up in the long run ponying up some money to get it. I agree with you that these for-profit entities need to start kicking in some money. They need to start cleaning up these railways. They need to start putting in better rail. But they're not. So somebody's got to kickstart it. Bangor and Waterville are looking to lead the way. At least I would like Waterville to lead the way. We always talk about sister cities and Russia and all these other places. There are plenty of partners right here in Maine that make very good sister cities. Bangor, Skowhegan are partners that we should be engaging all the time to make sure that we can continue to grow as a region and that it benefits everyone. I understand that $5,000 is going to lead to more money down the road. I'm assuming our share somewhere in the ballpark of $10,000 to $12,000 over the next 2 years. And then that's it. Once it comes down to that, it's up to these other companies, if it is feasible, to start investing their money into our rail so that we can move Mainers around the state. Councillor Thomas.
Well, I would just point out, I mean, I don't have the, hard numbers, but my intuition tells me the most heavily subsidized form of transportation on the planet is the automobile. Why don't Ford and Toyota and every automobile company pay to build the roads that you drive your car on? Because the car is pretty useless if there's no highways and no roads. And that's all paid for with public money. We heavily subsidize the oil and gas industry, in order to make those cars go from one place to another. I understand that there's a public benefit here. That's why it's, worth the public investing in this. Same as there's a public benefit to having roads so you can drive around the state and the country. I also, the fact that we study things to death drives me crazy. Like at some point, let's do it rather than just studying it. But unless the public gets behind some of these things, the finances of it doesn't necessarily work. And so quite honestly, I would have no problem with subsidizing rail service. We do it right now for cars, to an unbelievable extent. So.
Thank you. Councillor Oliveira. No? Okay, so we're going to leave her out of it. Anyone else? Councillor Klepak, and then Councillor Frankie.
I actually do really appreciate Councillor Foss's position on this. However, I'm thinking about it in terms of, what needs to happen to make it get done, right? The citizens of Waterville, the citizens of Bangor, the citizens of Central Maine along this entire corridor would be served by having rail service. There are, whatever growth aspirations this area has would be served by having commuter rail in place. One thing that we can do that doesn't require funding is to ask a representative of the rail that's currently operating. I understand it's industrial rail, but I don't have a particularly good sense of what circuits are being run now And it is of interest to me for a number of reasons beyond just commuter rail to understand what the current situation is. That's something that they should be able to send a representative to speak to the transportation committee when that forms, or the council, whoever they need to speak to. But that's information that I think the city can garner for free. Otherwise, I support $5,000 for the study. I think that Rick has a valid point, but if we're going to make progress, we need to just push and make it happen, not wait for the altruism of the rail line to decide that they want to do the study to see whether they're going to expand service up here or not. It takes a vision.
Frankie. Oh, thank you. Please back, Councilor Frankie, and then Councilor Green.
I would be quite surprised if you were able to put this to a referendum and have more than 2% of the people in Waterville vote to spend $5,000 for a rail study. As far as I can see, this is a pipe dream. It's just money squandered, and I'm behind you, Rick. This is a total waste of time and money.
Councilor Green.
So regarding this particular study, Jay, when you and I spoke earlier today, my understanding was that these funds the study would largely be paid out of public funds anyway that need to be matched. Is that correct?
Say that one more time.
So my understanding was that this study would be paid for by either federal or state funds that would need to be matched. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, that's what we're talking about, is that we have to pony up some of the cost of this in order for the study to go through. The Department of Transportation is actually paying the difference. And there's actually there's a mechanism to pay for this study. They should have just paid for it out of pocket. It has something to do with the way that we tax at least the gas and some of the roads. So it really should have, the money was already sitting there. They should have just used it. I think this was their way of sort of, I don't know, muddying the water to see if people were actually going to pay for some of these services, this study. And I'm up to the task. I think it's important that municipalities, when you are asking the state to fund things, that municipalities put some of their own money up if it's going to benefit them. That is a way to show that you're a part of what is actually trying to go on and that you're not just trying to get subsidies from the state.
So I guess the point I'm getting to is that this $5,000 is only, it's only if all of the communities that are benefiting from this study contribute something that we're going to even spend these funds, because, what I don't want to happen is to put up an amount that's out of proportion to other municipalities, or to have, people come back and ask for more, right?
Nope.
So.
I agree. And now that the fund, or what they're saying the feasibility is going to cost is a little bit less. And again, I want to remind everyone that Bangor has paid the lion's share of the initial. So the way it was in committee was that if we paid the first, when it was $300,000, they assumed that municipalities were going to have to pay $50,000. Between Waterville and Bangor, we were looking to pay the first $25,000 just to get the study started. They would start the study so long as they had half of the money down up front, which that's why Bangor was like, hey, we'll do 20. They reached out, they're like, can you help? And I'm like, I'll ask my council for the other 5 so that we can get this study going. And then together we will go to all of those other municipalities and break up that other $25,000. That $25,000 has shrunk. It looks like it's going to be closer to $17,000 now. And again, Bangor is committed to essentially paying that lion's share. Augusta should be kicking in money. Every single municipality along this route should be contributing something if they're going to benefit from this rail. And if you start taking those municipalities and spreading it out, it's really going to end up being a couple of grand a piece. It's not a ton of money in their budgets to see if this study is going to work for them. This feasibility study may come back and say it's not a good service. But none of us know that, and we won't know that until we have a study. So again, I don't make these decisions. I can only bring things to you, ideas that I have. It is ultimately the seven of you that have to make this choice. I just hope that you choose the right way. Councilor Morris.
So can you just confirm again that by putting this money in, we are going to get something that is feasibility specific to Waterville? Like,
well,
so, or is this something that, unless this goes to Bangor, this isn't going to happen? Like, and so, like, what I'm saying is that at the end of the day, or the beginning of the day, however you look at it, they do this study, and it's like, okay, well, it's feasible to the point where we get to maybe Waterville, but from Waterville north, it doesn't make sense. Like, so, I mean, are we going to get something that's specific for us, or is this Bangor's looking for rail service, and, rightfully so, they want to attract people there. And if the feasibility, we put this money in, the feasibility says, well, instead of going through Waterville, you should go up through, wherever, and just, save yourself that, now we're out of the mix, and it's not feasible for them to run lines here. I mean, I guess I'm just trying to understand what is the end game? We're putting out $5,000 for this. What are we going to get as the city of Waterville?
Exactly what you just said. We will get a study that shows the feasibility of the entire rail from Brunswick into Augusta to Waterville, out through Pittsfield, Newport, up to Bangor. Okay. So it'll be all encompassing. Some of the things that we have to think about is that we already have the rail. It sort of makes no sense for them to skip Waterville as one of the largest municipalities. They need our leg. It's not like they're going to just go, let's divert around Waterville and bring it to Bangor.
Well, how much of that rail do we own?
What was that?
How much of that rail do we own? I thought Pan Am owned a lot of that, which is why we had issues with the RFQ and moving stuff.
Pan Am now is sold. Now it's RBX, I believe.
Okay.
No, that's not correct. It would have been CSX, but it's been put on hold.
Okay, I had the initials wrong. Thank you, Klepak, for that. And again, it's going to be one of those things. Steve, which part of the rail do we own? Is it the one that goes across? It comes across from Winslow into Waterville.
Yes, it's up past the police station. And then there's a large rail yard up there area that we own also.
In the other part of that,
Mayor, if I can throw a bit of information on that rail.
Please do.
The one that goes from Waterville to Winslow stops at a steel yard down in Augusta, and then dead ends and does not continue through Augusta, through Gardner, and so on and so forth, because they already ripped the rail up. They got a rail trail down through there.
So, and that's the part where it's going to have to connect from Brunswick to Augusta. It's not going to go from Gardner area or Lewiston to Augusta. It will go through, because it ends in Brunswick now. It's
I
about
think we just did the feasibility study. If there's no rail.
No, I get that there's no rail. I understand that. They're going to have to build that out if they want to do this. And that's part of the study, is to figure out what that cost is going to be going forward. Technically, we could get a trolley on the tracks right now and go between Augusta and Waterville if we wanted to.
The steel yard.
Yeah,
the steel yard.
Drop them off.
That's it. That's as far as the line goes.
But figuring out the rest of it is what, there's so many variables that are out there that we don't know. We need the help to figure it out. And I am with you, Rick. I understand the drawback. I get it. But sometimes you have to take a leap of faith to see if it's going to work. There's no way around that. And with Bangor taking on the lion's share, I understand that Bangor, let's not kid ourselves, Bangor is a huge municipality that's probably going to get a ton of money from the state when it comes to COVID. They've got some extra to kick around. I want to help them get there. I really do. I want rail service. I want to get on a train and head down to Portland or head up to Bangor for an afternoon and come back. And I bet you a lot of residents would like to also.
Or to the
Bruins
Bruins
don't
game.
know if it's work. Go ahead.
Or to the Bruins game.
I mean, right? If you can get down from Portland to Boston, we need to start opening up our state. And rail is cleaner. It's what's it take? Like 1 gallon of gas to go like however many miles on a train. It's crazy. This all falls in line with our transportation committee. These are things that we will discuss. As Klepak said, we need to bring in representatives from the rail to discuss it with us. We need to talk about bus service. We will talk about regional bus service. Does it make sense to partner with Skowhegan and Fairfield to get people moved up to that area and back to us? These are all questions that we have. The transportation committee will help us with some of that. Some studies will be necessary, and I know, Eric, it's a pain. We spend a lot of time doing studies, talking about stuff, and then there's nothing actionable. I am looking for some actionable information to see if moving people around the central Maine area will benefit Waterville economically. I think it will, but again, that's a lot of information that we still need to see if that's going to happen. Anyone else? Councillor Oliveira, and then Councillor Foss.
I have a question. So I'm just trying to clarify the funds amount that so I heard $25,000. So that's everybody included? Is that the pool of all the municipalities included? And then I heard 17. So I'm like confused with those two numbers.
So no, Councillor Oliveira. Essentially, when we first started this, we thought it was going to be $50,000 total, which the Department of Transportation in the committee, in the House and Senate, decided that we could pay that $50,000 over the course of 2 years. What was happening is that Augusta hadn't paid anything, so Bangor essentially said, "Hey, we'll pony up the first 20 grand this year. Somebody else help us." And I'm like, "Hey, we can be that somebody else. Let me ask my council if they are willing to pay this portion." The remainder after the $25,000, be it 25,000, another 12,000, it's going to be somewhere in that range based on if the study is 150,000 or 300,000. They don't have the exact number yet. Rick, I believe they voted it for 150,000 on Monday.
They voted for 150,000. The initial bill was at 300,000. They negotiated down to 150,000 on the 7th. Yeah.
Okay, so take 25% of $150,000, and that's going to be
$37,000.
What was that?
37.5.
37.5. So between the 5,000 we're paying now and the 20,000, well, 5,000 if you guys agree to it, and the 20,000 that Bangor has put up, the difference will be that 12,500 on the second year. So the other municipalities are going to have to pony up for that $12,000. At this point, we're trying to get the study started. We're trying to lead the way with Bangor so that other municipalities sort of, for pun intended, get on the train. They need to get on board and start to pay for some of these things. And again, it goes to what I said earlier. When municipalities want something, and they're asking the state for funding to do it, they should pony up some money and be serious, because it's going to cost their taxpayers more later on down the road. What our portion of that $12,500 is going to be dictated by what other municipalities are paying. Again, it is my understanding that Bangor, they're aggressively trying to make this happen. I got off the phone with Joe Baldacci a little while ago. I've talked to our again, Bruce White. They feel like we're going to get these other municipalities to pay that $12,500. We paid the initial $25,000. Even if we pay another $5,000 or $3,000 to $5,000 later on in that second year, everyone else has to pony up. You are not going to be on the hook for that $12,500. I will go find that money. As I said, I will knock on every municipality's door. Those mayors, those city councils better be expecting me, because it's going to happen. If you want rail service, we need to all start acting like regional partners. We need to spend more time figuring out how to do things together.
I got another question, just following up with.
Go ahead and
So what about if they don't come up with the 12,500? So
Make Bangor pay it.
but if they don't come up with it, would in the following year be more? What about because what about if you don't get those municipalities to join on this?
Then it looks like it'll be us and Bangor.
So
but I don't foresee that happening. Again, that's the leap of faith that I'm asking everyone to take with me, is that one way or another, I will come find that other $12,500. I don't care if you take it from my salary. That's how important I think rail service in our community is. If I have to pony up that $5,000 that you guys pay me every year, take it. I don't care. I'm willing to put that skin in the game.
Rebecca Green, I think, is starting a motion for an amendment on that.
Go ahead. I mean,
Well,
I want to throw this in on there, Mayor, that we keep talking about, we're taking a leap of faith, and, it's a price to pay. Well, already the state of Maine has ponied us up, if you will, for $400,000 of taxpayer money. It doesn't matter. It's this wallet right here that we all have, that we're paying, whether it's to municipal, to the county, to the state, to the Fed. We are the taxpayer. We're the one that's footing the bill. I don't care where the money comes from, but if I have a say in not spending that money, I'm going to have a say.
And you should. And that, again, is why I like being mayor, because the mayor does not have the power to act unilaterally. My job is to sell it to you, to sell it to the citizens, and then move on. It's your decision. I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. Like I said, take my salary. Don't care. It's that important to our region to be able to move people around. And I agree with you. $400,000 is ridiculous. And for $400,000, we haven't even studied whether it's possible to take it to Bangor, whether it's possible to bring it to Waterville. We keep spending money for Lewiston. We keep spending money for Portland, where the state spends money for Auburn, for Gardner. It is time for the state, including us, to start looking at the rest of the state. We are not an afterthought. We are an economic driver for this entire state. And they need to start recognizing that Waterville and Bangor are just as important to the rest of the state as Portland and Lewiston. Councilor Green.
Well, I saw that Councilor Oliveira had her hand up, but
I'm sorry. Go
if
ahead.
she wants to, okay. So I'm going to move that we go ahead with a vote.
Okay.
At this point.
Do we need a second for that?
Second.
That was a point of order, and I'm very impressed.
I loved it. Patty, can I get a roll call, please?
Can't hear you,
You're
Patty.
muted.
So we're just voting at just the $5,000 for this year. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Council Morris,
Listen, I think this is definitely worth $5,000. So I'm going to say yes.
Council Olivera,
Yes.
Council Klepak.
Yeah.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
No.
Council Frankie,
No,
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 5 in favor and 2 opposed.
And Rick and Claude, I appreciate both of you. Like I say all the time, I like people that challenge my way of thinking. We aren't going to agree on everything. I like that we are always respectful, and I appreciate you both for that. And I appreciate the rest of you for taking that leap with me. Next.
Thank you, Mayor. The next item, this begins the budget review portion of the meeting.
Okay.
And first department on the agenda is the library. So I will take Tammy Rabideau, and I will promote her to a panelist. And there is also Cindy Jacobs, who is the chair, I believe, of the library board. I will promote her as well.
All right. Thank you, Patty.
Councilor Green, you still got your hand up. There you go.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Tammy.
Hello.
Good to see everybody. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, I think I figured out how to get my, there we go. Jeez.
We see you, Cindy.
High tech.
It's good to see everyone. I hope everyone is staying cool. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to speak with everyone this evening. You have received our budget long time ago, and I'm sure you've heard lots of feedback from my board, knowing Cindy and her rabble-rousing ways. So I won't go through all the details that I believe were shared with you via bullet points, and just highlight that our budget as presented does represent approximately a $43,000 increase. To account for that increase is approximately $32,000 to address employee benefit increases and a 53rd week pay period, which I'm sure you've been hearing a lot about from different departments, and $10,000 in the building maintenance line. As you all have heard time and time again, Cindy and I and the board have been working very hard at getting the support for the building so that we are in a proactive maintenance disposition. We've been playing catch up, as you all well know. Many of you have been supporting the library in that effort. And we've been working very hard over the last year and a half, in particular, with a lot of the bond allocation that we were able to line up in 2019. And in tandem with that, we are seeking to get our facility maintenance line where it needs to be to, like I said, stay proactive and take care of that beautiful asset that's really a jewel in the city of Waterville. Those are really the 2 points that I was here to present to you all. I thought I would be proactive and address the number one question that everyone has, and that is, of course, when is the library going to be open to the public? And I have 2 answers to that. Consistently through the pandemic, the library has remained open. We have been a very busy place. We've been serving thousands of folks in a myriad of ways that were enumerated in the bullet list that you received most recently and in past conversations. I'm happy to talk a little bit more about that if that would be helpful. But specifically to the readiness of the building being open to the public, we are really determined to get our people back in our building. The building projects are still ongoing, and we are eager to get folks back in when it is safe to do so. And unfortunately, it still does not remain safe to bring the public into the building. We still have flooring, windows, bookshelves, staff workstations, objects throughout the building that are displaced because of those efforts. We hope that we will be able to have the public back in the building mid to late summer. Some of the things that are the influences that we have no control over have to do with labor shortages. shortages in truckers and getting some of the supplies and materials to the library to solve some of the problems that we're working on. I think those are the things that I was going to share. I would love to entertain any questions.
Let's go with Councilor Frankie first.
Just very quickly, I know the cost of building materials and stuff has been skyrocketing. Has that had any impact on the work you're doing there in the library?
It has had an impact, but not to the point that I or the board currently have concerns about meeting the goals that we had set out with the bond funds. We're really crafty and strategic about our decision making. So where some things might have been higher, we're just making it work, making compromises in other areas that where possible. The access in timing has been more of a challenge that we just have to keep rolling with, unfortunately.
Other councilors?
Tammy or Cindy, can you talk about the maintenance budget? Like you said, you're going to allocate. You were looking to allocate another $10,000 in this budget to start moving that up. Is there a plan over the next couple of budgets to increase that number, and what should that number look like?
Want me to take that one?
Yeah, I'm gonna let Cindy take that one.
Basically, there's a general rule of thumb for planning building maintenance, which is 1 to 2% of the overall assessed value of the building. Right now, the Waterville Public Library, last I looked, was about $6.4 million, including its contents. So when you figure that out, at 64 million is 1%, and 120,000 is, 64,000, sorry, and 120,000 would be the 2%. Right now, with this increase we got, we're bringing ourselves up to 68,000. So as most of you that have been on the council for a while know that we have requested $10,000 each year for the past several years, because when I started as president, the building maintenance budget was $10,000. And then
it was actually $7,000.
Okay, then it, we got it to 15. So we've been very carefully trying to increase it by what we thought was a reasonable request of $10,000. I must admit, I have been attending many of these meetings during the course of this past year, and seeing that the city actually has a little bit more funding. I wanted to get gutsy and say we should move it to 20 so that we can get to that level sooner. I chose not to do that. Everyone's figured everything out, but that's really, we should be minimum of 10, aiming for 20, and the number we need to get to is between $100,000 and $120,000 a year for building maintenance. Does that answer your question?
Sure does.
Rick?
Go ahead, Councilor Foss. It's all right, Cindy, you can do my job.
I'm used to running the meetings.
And I've been watching the council for a while, and then now I'm on the council. I watch the budgets and how people handle their tax dollars. And Cindy knows that every time we get on the phone, the first words out of my mouth are, "Cindy, I never worry about you guys because you're good stewards of the taxpayer dollar." Okay, and I'm going to say it again out loud in front of everybody. Again, I never have to worry about your department. There are a few departments that I can say that about, but I can say it publicly for you. So I can't wait to get in there and see the mahogany, because you know me, I love all that old mahogany in there. So.
Well, I will say that it's Tammy Rabideau that's doing it all. The city is very, very fortunate to have her, not only as an incredible library, a person who can run a library with all of the things that a library should do for a community, but she has added the skill set of being able to manage the funding and keep track of it all. And we should all be thanking her.
That goes across to Tammy, Cindy, and the whole team at the library.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks much.
Anyone else? Councilor Frankie.
I just want to chime in and point out that this is another place where we're in total agreement, Rick. And I think you're absolutely right, Mike. This is one of the things that we really should take care of. It's one of the jewels in the city. You do such great work down there, Tammy. This is, like I say, again, we're
Thank you.
Any other councilors? I don't see anybody with their hand up. And I'm just going to reiterate what Claude and Rick have said. You guys do a great job at the library. I appreciate that you guys have weathered the storm with us during the middle of a pandemic, and that you were able to still provide some services to residents and other visitors. I really do appreciate that. I think the library is a very important piece of Waterville. I always highlight gems, and I think that our library is one of them. So I appreciate, Cindy, everything that you do, and Tammy, everything that you're doing. It's really great to see a department that works well, and as they've touched on, you guys aren't frivolous with the money. You are penny pinching every opportunity that you get, and I'm sure if they made coupons for libraries, you'd be using them. So I appreciate you all. Anybody else before we let them go? All right, you guys are all set up. Go ahead.
I just want to make a comment for you all. You all are working so hard. I was with you last night to the bitter end. I mean, not last night, last week. You're working so hard, and I just appreciate all the time and energy and thought that you are putting in for the betterment of the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Love you, library.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Any questions? If anybody has any questions, you all know where we live. Email Tammy, email me. We're an open book. So we'll just keep moving forward and look forward to welcoming everybody back in our library soon.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good night. Patty, who's next?
The administration is next. So
All right.
that would be Mr. Daly.
Steve, you're on mute.
Steve.
No, I'm not. If you go to the budget that was posted today, there is a budget memo for administration that points out that labor costs for administration are up by a little over $98,000, and the non-labor costs are up by $58,000. Of that $58,000, by the way, $35,000 of it is the work that we're going to do to outfit a location for the council and hopefully the planning board to meet, as well as the rent for that facility. When we look at the labor costs, the primary increase there is the cost of an assistant city manager. And if you go to the positions added tab, that assistant city manager position totals out loaded cost of $88,400. Of course, we're experiencing the 53rd week impact, but it's fairly nominal in the case of this department. And beyond that, cost increases are relatively minor and rather routine. We're seeing a $5,000 drop, by the way, in facility maintenance. Our heating costs are going up by $3,000. And our legal services are increasing by $15,000. That has to do with the outsourcing of the city charter and the municipal code and policies. Audit expenses are up another $5,000, and professional services in general, we have a $5,000 allocation there. That is for something specific that right at this second escapes me. And it's still escaping me. But those are the changes in this budget. And when you look down through it, just like many of the other budgets, things that we've added since the first iteration that we provided to you back in late March, early April, any changes are highlighted in light green.
And Steve, just for the benefit of our citizens and everyone who is paying attention, as it stands, if we make 0 changes to the budget, will there be an increase in mill rate to our residents?
No.
Which has been our task from the beginning when we started this process in January. I just want to point out that there, as we've said before, there is no increase in the mill rate for our residents this time around, even while we're adding new positions. I will say and speak to the city manager's position. I have been on the council. Rick now holds the seat that I used to hold. Rick has been here with Mike Roy, and so have some of the other councilors while Mike was the city manager. Mike did a good job with the resources that he had. However, it was Morris and I who originally voted against the contract. Other councilors kept Mike. We thought that even back then that there needed to be some sort of transition to the next city manager. People said no. Here we are. We've had a assistant city manager for the last 6 months, essentially, with Mike Roy taking on a lot of those responsibilities. My issues are why I think that the assistant city manager position is important. Steve is already going to be overworked. We want Steve to do economic development. We want Steve to make new connections. I know it gets tossed around that it's expensive. We've already got a mayor. We've already got a city manager. Why do we need that? Well, again, as we discussed in an earlier, you pay me $5,000 a year. I spend 15 to 20 hours a week at a minimum down at City Hall doing different things with Steve, with other counselors. I am not that person. I cannot do that job. The day-to-day stuff is not something that I want to do. I want to bring you ideas, and then the rest of you sort of help me implement if they work for you. Steve needs that help. Mike was burnt out. So bringing things to Mike, if it was a lot more work, and I'll say it publicly, Mike may not have been in favor. His workload was already a lot. I do not want to burn Steve out. I think it's important that he be fresh to do the things that you guys task him to do. I think it's important that he have some sort of support to help him run the day-to-day stuff. I think you will get more productivity out of the city, and we'll be more efficient. The city will be more efficient with an assistant city manager. I believe that. And again, I don't have the authority to do the stuff that an assistant city manager or city manager do. And I certainly don't want that position. I don't want that sort of responsibility. I like the fact that my position holds no real power. I think that's how more stuff gets done. So, Steve, I hope you get your assistant city manager. I look forward to working with the both of you to implement the things that we want to do in this city. And I hope that the rest of the council goes along with it. I'm sure some of you won't. And that's okay. You'll have valid reasons. But if you want the most production out of City Hall, this is a position that is sorely needed. We want to be proactive when we are doing things for the city, not reactionary, and we don't want to slow play things. We want to cut through some red tape. Having that extra person to get us there will be beneficial. And I'll leave that to everybody else. Anyone else with questions? I see none. Oh, Rebecca Green.
So, first of all, I want to thank Steve for sending the job description over this afternoon for the assistant position. It's really helpful to see exactly what we're talking about, and certainly the things on that list make me think that, you know, it would be great to have an assistant city manager. And I appreciate that we can do this without raising the mill rate. But I also have concerns, and constituents have expressed concerns that these are a lot of new positions all at once. And I get, and you know, at some point we do have to think about lowering the mill rate. So you know, obviously there's a point somewhere there that is a balance between being efficient and moving the city forward and accomplishing our goals, and then providing a tax break. And I know that we've agreed that we were going to have a goal of stabilization this year, but you know, this is not a one-time cost. This is moving forward, and I believe the sheet, the summary of new positions was something like 14 full-time equivalents. So I'd like to hear what others think. I mean, it is an important decision, and I can see both sides of it, and I certainly also want to support Steve to be a success. There's a lot going on right now, but that's how I'm feeling about the issue at this moment.
Thank you, Councilor Green. I'm going to go to Eric Thomas and Claude Frankie.
You know, I think this position and the position that we funded over at the Growth Council are two very important positions in this budget if we're going to actually accomplish the goals that we've laid out for Steve and for the city. I understand there's a lot of positions all at once, but part of that's because we've been, you know, understaffed for so long, and so we're trying to make up for lost time a bit here. It has been, I can tell you that in the last 6 months or so, I feel like we've accomplished the same amount that it has in the past has taken 2 or 3 years to get done. And so it really feels like some of these things are really moving forward. And I think it's been really, I think we've had a glimpse of what it looks like to have an assistant city manager with Mike Roy having been on it, at least in a part-time role in the last 6 months or so. I can't imagine how much of Steve's time it would have eaten up to do the things that Mike has been doing if he didn't have that resource available to him, and how much that would have taken away from the other things that we've accomplished. You know, when you talk about, you know, things like digging into the zoning, coming up with an economic development plan for the city, you know, these are big projects to take on. And the reason that, you know, we've just paid lip service to these things the last, you know, 10 years or so, there just hasn't been the capacity in the administration to take those kind of projects on. And it's, you know, I was the chair of the committee that rewrote the city's comprehensive plan 6 or 7 years ago, and it was just a tremendous amount of work. You know, at certain points I was like, why did I volunteer to do this? You know, but these are things that need to be done. And if we expect, you know, it's really a matter of getting our house in order and giving Steve the resources to do that. And you know, we're asking Steve to do a lot, but I think a lot of what we're asking to do is sort of tee things up for whoever the next person may be. Because I think he's going to get through a lot of the planning, but the implementation may come after. And it'll be important to have some continuity in the city administrator's office. Have an assistant there who knows what's going on, who's up to speed on the institutional knowledge, that goes along with that job. And God forbid, what would we do right now if for some reason Steve was unable to do his job? Whether it was a health emergency for himself or his family or, whatever it may be, who's going to take over running the city on a day-to-day basis? I don't think we really have a good plan for that. And we've been lucky that we haven't encountered that situation over the years with Mike. But I think we're playing with fire a little bit in that case. So I just think it's going to be money well spent. And that's how I feel.
Councillor Frankie, then Councillor Oliveira.
All right. Well, you're absolutely right, Eric. It's spending money. We're talking about $1 million in new hired people. The way I look at it, if we didn't hire any of the people that have been suggested, that would be $1 million that we could use for a reduction in the mill rate, Mr. Mayor. That's something that you don't talk about anymore since you were mayor, although you used to talk about it all the time. So I really think that we should take a little bit harder look at all the hires. I've suggested that the fire department hires should be pushed back 6 months. I've suggested that the code enforcement officer hire be pushed back 6 months. As far as the assistant manager, I think the fact that we've gotten so much done since we hired the new manager, Eric, is testimony to what a good job he's been doing. So let's let him keep doing the job for another 6 months. Another year, let's do it for another year, and we'll look at things next year and see if it's appropriate to hire an assistant city manager. I think this is premature at this point, though. Again, let's think about what we can do to slow down the hiring so that it's not a shock to the system.
Thank you, Councillor Frankie. Councillor Oliveira, I'll give you a moment here in a second. Claude, my goal in the end is to absolutely lower the mill rate. I think that key investments now will help us in the next year or two to be able to look and take a serious look at a reduction in mill rate. That is always my goal. I have said it before that I think a reduction will come. Not this year. My goal this year was to get a zero increase and allow us to be able to invest for the future. I think it's important that we do it. I think that over the last decade, we have spent a lot of time cutting corners. We have cut costs to our own detriment. I think that there are things that we could have accomplished in the past that we haven't because of budget shortfalls. If the roof leaks, you must fix it. If you keep waiting down the road to fix it, it's going to be a much bigger problem and a much larger cost. I absolutely am with you. I want to lower the mill rate. This is not the year that we're going to do that. I think that even if we cut a ton of funding, and Eric, you can be able to speak to this after Flavia, that most of the money we are spending is TIF revenue in different creative ways. If you cut all of that out, we would still not be able to lower the mill rate this year. Maybe you could probably go down 0.10, but to have to sort of stabilize that, I want us to have a rainy day fund. I think it's important so that after we lower the mill rate, we can keep it stable. The most important thing, other than just our mill rate, is predictability. We want businesses to know that we are going to stay constant. We want residents to know that we are going to keep a baseline or try to dip lower for them. It starts with investment in our community. and I appreciate everything that you do, Claude. I've said this before, we don't always agree, but I appreciate your approach. I like that you are a person that dots his T's and crosses his I's. We need that. We need those sorts of ideas. But as you've said in the past, this budget is on me. It's gonna, whether it fails down the road, I am willing to put my neck out on the line so that we as a city get to move forward in a positive manner. I want us to make as much revenue as we can that does not and is not dependent on the residents, that we are not dependent on the state and the whims that they go through. I want us to be stable for years to come. Councillor Flavia and then Eric.
All right, so I'm in support of it. And what I wanted to say is that just like you keep saying, stability. And in order for us to operate the city and stop cutting corners is to hire new people instead of burning out the people that we have. So that's why I am fully in support of hiring new people, because we were understaffed. And right now, like you said, there is more development being done here in Waterville. So we are going to need more city workers. We are going to need more of that in order for us to do a job the right way here in Waterville. So I am in fully support of hiring the new positions and to help operate the city in a stable way later on down the line. So I'm in support.
Thank you, Councillor Oliveira. Eric Thomas.
To Claude's own point, we have been operating with an assistant city manager for the last 6 months. And so, not funding this position would actually be a step backwards. I think what the last 6 months has demonstrated is the need for this position. And I can't tell you, in one form or another, I've been involved in Waterville city government for about 15 years now. And I just can't tell you how many things that I have seen die on the vine for lack of resources, for just talking things over and over again, for, not having somebody who wants to really push things forward. It seems like we're always starting over again. And I hear people, a familiar refrain is that the city should be run like a business. And my question is always, what kind of business? A failing business or a business that's growing and succeeding? Because most businesses that do nothing but cut are on their way to being a failed business. Businesses invest in their people, they invest in their infrastructure, they invest in their equipment, they invest in their product, and business, the most successful businesses don't just deliver the cheapest product either. Look at, things like iPhones and whatnot. People spend 2, 3, 4 times as much for that product because it gives them something that they don't get from other products. And so it's not always just about delivering the cheapest product and cutting things. And, if you want to advance and succeed as a company, as a city, as an entity, you need to invest in yourself and your people and give them the resources. And the long-term problem that Waterville has with its mill rate is the price of commercial property in the city. The long-term solution to our problem is to increase the value of commercial property in the city by, increasing economic activity through having a plan, through redoing our zoning. And yes, taxes are an important, factor when businesses decide where to go. But more important is, where are the workers? Where are my customers? Those are the things that they really, what's the quality of life for my employees, which is becoming more important, especially when people can work from home. They're going to be choosing, where they live based on quality of life. And so, we need to deliver that to the people who live here. And in order to do that, we need to invest.
Councillor Foss.
So it's the one time a year that we all know and come to love that Councillor Foss and Councillor Frankie see eye to eye. I want to speak to the assistant city manager position because of something that the chair had just brought up, that when we transitioned Mr. Roy to this position that he is right now, it was under the assumption that he was going to be handling the build grant build. Has that morphed into more and more? Are we putting more and more on Mr. Roy's plate? And if so, to what degree?
Steve?
Mike has handled not a ton of work on the day-to-day administration matters, but the work that he's done on the downtown revitalization has, in some respects, bled out into other matters that are going on. And of course, he has the historical knowledge of a lot of things that would take me weeks to get up to speed on. He's been a very helpful assistant, if you will, and he's full of energy, so he gets a lot of things done. But the point of the matter here, though, in my opinion, is that if I'm handling all of the day-to-day administrative tasks and not having someone that I can just give those to or give that responsibility to, then that's all I'm going to be doing. I'll be doing that, and I'll be doing agendas, and I'll be doing feeding the council with the things that I feed you with now, but I'm not going to be able to get to the outside relationships that we all talked about when I was interviewing for this position that need to be developed, and I need to be the point person on that to help fuel and drive the economic engine that is going to take us out of the position we're in and move us into the future and keep pace with the development or revitalization that's going on downtown, and to get that to spread across the city. If I get bogged down in the day-to-day routine like Mike did, then what's being said here is true. Things that I can do in a day or a week probably aren't going to get done for weeks or months, if ever, because of all of the day-to-day things that need to be handled.
Okay.
Rick, any other questions before I move on to somebody else?
Good to go.
Thank you. Councilor Green, then Councilor Kleepak.
So I just wanted to ask about Mike's position, and like Councillor Foss mentioned, my assumption was that he was handling the build grant, although we also have a consultant who is managing that process as well. So my questions are, has that person started yet overseeing the project? And what is Mike planning to stay until the end of the summer or the end of the year? What is his what is his plan for ending his employment?
Going backwards on your questions, Mike has given his notice for June 30.
Okay.
Originally, I had hoped that he would stay through the end of the calendar year, but he's decided not to do that.
Okay.
With respect to your other question, I'm not sure what consultant you're referring to.
Well, that was part of the grant, that there was a consultant who was going to supervise that's the on-site inspection and everything else. I realize Mike is doing other things that relate to communication.
Now, there is a project manager who works day to day with Crooker and the other parties, the other contractors, to keep everything on track and to solve problems, to answer questions, to do analyses and research on other topics that relate to the project. What Mike has been doing primarily is maintaining the relationships with the downtown community so that everyone is comfortable with how things are happening, the things that are being done. And he's out on a fairly day-to-day basis, just keeping things calm and solving problems with the business owners and the residents in the downtown area. He's quite busy doing that.
So I guess my thought would be, that, you know, obviously at the beginning when you start a new job, relationship building does take time, and there's a big, you know, there's a steep learning curve when a person is new. And it has been great that that Mike has provided that institutional bridge. Hiring a new person is not going to offer that. And it's in fact going to mean that you're going to be training someone else who's new. So I would propose that we give it some time, and, you know, at least 6 months or a year, I guess, because it's going to be in the budget, and just see how things go this year. I'm not opposed to the idea of an assistant city manager at some point, but I just wonder if this is the time to dive in with all the new appointments.
Councillor Klepak. Oh, I'm sorry, Rebecca. Did you need an answer to that question at the moment, or can I move to?
It was kind of rhetorical, I guess.
Okay.
That's my thought right now, unless there's some compelling reason why that is not a good idea.
My only take on that, Rebecca, would be that if we do kick it down the road 6 months or a year, that's going to put us behind the curve. There are a lot of projects that are currently ongoing. There are a lot of projects that are going to be coming on board. And you're right, there's going to be some learning curve for the new person because Steve is going to have to do some of that training. I also believe that Patty is going to be a phenomenal resource to help. When Steve isn't around, Patty is sort of like the big dog. She has been here the longest. She knows what she's doing. And I make no bones about it. I always say that Patty runs the roost. She knows what she's doing. So I think that the next, whoever we bring in, will get an opportunity to learn some of those things from Patty and Steve at the same time. And again, I will be there to sort of help guide some of it. I will say that I'm very appreciative of the relationship that Steve and I have built over these last 6 months. I think if you ask Steve, he'll tell you that it's been an easy transition, which may not have been that way in the past. And I'll let him speak to that. But my only concern is that with all the projects that we have ongoing and ones that will be coming down the pipe, that I don't want to get bottlenecked and bogged down. It will just put us behind, and then we'll have to be doing that again next year. Others may agree with you. Again, that's something that you guys as a group will vote on. I can only tell you what my feeling on that and what my idea is. Councillor Klepak, and then I'll go back to Oliveira and then Thomas.
Thank you. Yeah, initially when this proposal got put in the budget, I hadn't made up my mind, and I guess I'm not 100% set. I'm trying to listen to the arguments, but to me, the argument that because we are hiring a significant number of people in the city, that it's not the right time to put in more management structure doesn't really hold up to me. It seems like that is exactly the time to put in more management infrastructure. Secondly, I think it does make sense to lay groundwork, lay infrastructure for the future, for sort of a continuity of government. And I think also that an assistant, I'm compelled by the argument that assistant city manager could be a position that would enable Steve to really explore his strengths, which, Steve has an amazing amount of experience, right? He has a long career behind him. And as a professional seasons, they become better at higher order stuff. I tend to trust that professionalism when they say that they need a certain amount of human resource to accomplish what they're hoping to accomplish. So, there's another point that I was going to make, also in support of it, but it's escaping my little foggy mind right now. But I just wanted to say that I currently am in favor of the position.
Thank you. Councilor Oliveira?
I had a question. So, surrounding towns like Augusta, Bangor, do they have an assistant manager?
That was my other point.
And the froggy mind came back. Steve, do you have an answer for that?
Yes, Bangor has an assistant manager. Augusta has two. And there are a number of towns down around the Portland area, out on the coast, all the way to Brunswick, I believe, that have assistant managers as well.
Okay, thank you.
Back to Eric Thomas.
I mean, we have an assistant city clerk, but we don't have an assistant city manager. I just want everyone to think, I emailed Steve not long after, he started to settle into the job, and the subject line of the email was all the meetings. And my concern was that so much of his time was being eaten up by meetings. When was he doing his job? But the fact of the matter is, a huge part of the job is all the meetings. And I want every single city councilor to think, how much of Steve's time do each of you take up every single week? And then multiply that by 8. And then add in a city council meeting. When is he doing his job? So that's, why I feel like we need another person. We need to support him. We're setting him up for failure. There is no way he can accomplish the goals we have laid out for him if he's just one person in that office. And so, like I said, the nature of the job is so much of it is just relationship building and dealing with counselors. And I mean, I said this when I applied for the position. A huge part of the job is managing the elected officials. And that was my argument for why I felt like I was qualified for the job, because that part I knew, and I felt like the rest of it I could learn. And you have to take that into account. Just so much of his time is spent just talking to people, and what comes out of that is things that we actually expect him to do. And when is that work going to be done if 25 hours a week is just talking to you, me, and everyone that you see on the screen?
I'm going to go to Councilor Green, then Councilor Foss.
So I appreciate what you're saying, Eric. I absolutely do. And I actually did a little research today, and it's true that a lot of towns, cities our size do have an assistant city manager. But, just less than 6 months ago, we were hiring for this position and none of it came up at the time. So I do find that is good. And we do have some ambitious goals for Steve, which we haven't actually even shared with the council yet. And of course we can revise them too, if we choose. I think that if we do go forward with hiring an assistant city manager, that we should task the team with putting into place some of the things that were in the comprehensive plan that was developed. Because as you said, that's a lot of work that is sitting on a shelf. And that, if that is the task and the goal that we're setting, then I would say that investment is worth it. But let's, if we're going to spend these funds, then we're going to go big. Let's go big. Let's do it. And get our act together and really follow through on some of the things that have been waiting.
Councilor Green, thank you again for speaking up. Rick, before I go to you, I just want to touch on something that she said, and that is the comprehensive plan. That comprehensive plan is pretty old. I think it's time that as a council and as a city, we start to reevaluate that comprehensive plan. we're always talking about the things that we should be doing. I think it's very important that we act on those things that we've been talking about instead of just sitting around talking about them all the time. And that comprehensive plan is extremely important, and it will put out a guideline for what we want to see the city look like 10, 15 years down the road. You guys have had a comprehensive plan, and it's 2021, and to this date, I can't count on my hands how many of those things you've actually accomplished.
Well,
Rick.
and just to give some perspective, that was a year-long project to redo that comprehensive plan, meetings, including the city manager. Like, it's a big project, you know.
Yep. Voss, Councilor Voss?
5 minutes. That's what I've spent of Mr. Daly's time this week so far. 5 minutes. Just wanted to answer that question. Because the chair said that how much time did we as councilors take of Mr. Daly's time? 5 minutes and 11 seconds to be exact.
I appreciate that. Councilor Kleepak.
I took your time this week, Rick.
We have very efficient conversations.
Yes, we do.
I will tell you that I know that I use up way more time than that. Probably 100-fold. Steve and I are in communication almost daily about what's going on. I'd say we do talk every day in one fashion or another. He stays pretty busy, and when I'm in that office, I know that the executive assistant is sort of like the gatekeeper. I sort of bristle right by her, and I start knocking on Steve's door.
So it's an elected official that's taking up his time.
Yes. And again, I think a lot of you will. And I think if we are, and I'm not saying that your 5 minutes doesn't qualify you as being entrenched in what you're doing. I know that you spend a lot of time, you and I communicate for way more than 5 minutes a week. So a lot of those things I go back to Steve. So by proxy, you've wasted more than 5 minutes of his time.
No, it doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way.
But seriously, I see what you're saying. I see what Eric's saying. Like I said, I'm typically around 15 to 20 hours a week running around. They affectionately call me Taz. Well, at least I think it's affectionate. Maybe it's not. But I will take that nickname in stride because I am all over City Hall and all over this city trying to find ways and cogs and levers to pull to make more things happen. And that's where I want to be. I want to be out making those connections. But I am not the city manager, nor am I the assistant city manager. Steve and the assistant city manager have to answer to you guys. I'm not in that same boat where I believe that I'm not above what the council is doing. We are a team. I just bring you ideas and hope that you adopt some of them. Anyone, Councilor Green, your hand is still up.
Yes, I have one more thing to say.
Go ahead.
And that is, I presume we're voting on this budget as a package, correct?
Well, you can take things out if you want to, as long as you guys amend it.
Well, right. I guess what I would propose is that we do look at the city manager evaluation and the goals, and that the council consider those goals before we move ahead on the decision for the assistant city manager.
And that was made available. I don't know if people have actually read it, but Steve did put it up in the share space, the proposed evaluation with the goals. Yeah.
And it'll be on the agenda next meeting, right?
Yes.
So if that doesn't throw up the schedule, I would propose that we do that. And then I feel like we will be doing our due diligence, as they say.
And Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, we're about 2 meetings away from you guys taking your first budget.
I think the plan is to present the budget next week.
Okay, so after that conversation, Rebecca, you'll have an opportunity to make an amendment then, before you guys take your first vote.
And to be clear, the budget we've been talking about is just a draft. Nothing has been presented to the council to vote on. So what's going to happen is we're going to take all of these discussions that we've had, and the finance committee is going to sit down and come up with what we actually want to present to the council to vote on. And then at that point, the council is going to be able to offer changes to that. And, you know, some of these things that have been debated will probably be held off to the side as, you know, things that can be added or subtracted. And so you're going to see a final version, or not a final version, but the version of the budget that we expect to actually debate on for vote will come out. I think we're planning to have a meeting tomorrow about that.
At 11 a.m., right?
Yep.
Correct.
Yep. Councillor Foss.
So everybody understands, but we've just been discussing different things about the budget for the past 2 months. We haven't decided anything at this point. What Eric is suggesting is that next week, push is going to start coming to shove, and we'll present the official budget, and then it'll be up to us to present amendments. For instance, I may present an amendment that we not do any hiring this year, and instead go for $1 million in lower taxes. That could be an amendment that we'll actually take a vote on. I'm not saying that that's going to be what I'm going to do, Eric, but those are the kinds of things that will actually get down to pushing and shoving on the budget, starting next at the next council meeting.
That's correct, Claude. Thank you for that. Rick.
That was the clarification that I was about to give. It's like me and Claude. I'm gonna go buy a lottery ticket tonight. I'm just saying.
You're gonna
and
lose.
I think Councilor Thomas's head just exploded when the $1 million down on mill rate. Never mind. We're walking on.
Anyone else?
Councillor Oliveira.
I have a question. So even if we were to put that $1 million back in the budget, how much of the rate would actually go down? But just for instance, if we're to do no hire, none of that increase, and just grab those funds and put it back there, what would that do? Because isn't it's not even coming from that? Isn't it coming from TIF? Isn't it like a creative way of using TIF this year?
It's a creative way of using TIF this year and hopefully going forward. I think that part of the plan that we have worked on since January with the Finance Committee, Eric, myself, Morris, Steve, and other meetings that we've had, we have tried to present you a budget that, again, was zero increase. But it's one of those things where even if you reduce it, and I'll let Eric speak to this, 500,000 of it is technically surplus that we didn't use the year before, and the other portion of it is TIF funding. So I may be wrong, and I'll let Eric try to correct me, but from what I've worked on with them and what I tried to present to this council, even if you remove that $1 million, you're going to do nothing for the mill rate. Like, it's not going to go down. Eric?
You know, I mean, there's always ways, but, you know, yes, a lot of that is TIF money. So if we don't allocate it to the things that we've allocated it to, we're just going to have to allocate it to other things that are eligible TIF expenses. It's not going to anything we can use really to lower the mill rate. And then, you know, some of the positions, like the positions at the fire department, for example, if you eliminate them, you also have to eliminate the revenue that they generate. So, you know, those aren't going to lower the mill rate, you know.
Councillor Kleepak.
To put Councilor Oliveira's question in concrete terms, just doing the math, it would averaged out across every adult in Waterville. It's about $100. It would be more for some and less for others, of course, but about the amount of money we're talking about. Everything is on the table.
Thank you, Councillor Kleepak. Anyone else with questions before we move to the next department? All right, Patty, who's next?
The assessor's office is next, so I can pull in Paul Castongway, the city assessor, and Allison Brochu, the assistant assessor.
Please do.
And here comes Allison.
Mayor, is it inappropriate to call for a 5-minute recess?
Yes.
No.
Thanks.
Patty, can we take 5 minutes? I mean, it's been
I hate to
almost
do
2
it.
hours.
I hate to do it.
But he's been drinking a lot of coffee and squirrel bladder.
I have.
Can I can take a 5-minute recess? Can I not?
Yes, you may. It's your meeting.
I'm going to move to take a 5-minute recess.
Okay.
Everybody go. back? All right, we are ready. Paul,
Hey, good
thank you
evening.
for being patient.
If
Allison,
it wasn't for the 53rd week, I don't know if our budget would have changed any. If you take a look at it, payroll's up a little bit. Just operating costs, we rounded up some numbers to pay for what we've been short on. Office supplies, we've been going without because we didn't have the monies, and professional services went up a little bit. So there isn't much here.
all right. Anybody got questions for Paul?
Somebody's got to have questions.
Councilor Frankie.
Well, the $64,000 question, of course, is where does the city stand in terms of revaluation?
I've got the numbers. I'm going to do another year of sales. We'll see what the new sales come in at and see if they reflect what I think they're going to be. We can implement it next year if we want. It's up to us.
Thank you.
Councilor Foss.
Oh, you just said you've been going without because you don't have the office supplies. Can you elaborate?
Oh, I'll let Allison answer that. She takes care of my office supplies.
Allison, you're on the hot seat. It's on you.
Yay. All right. So, not necessarily that we've really been going without office supplies, but not only do we supply supplies for the assessor's office, but I'm support for code enforcement, the city engineer, and the city planner. The city planner is now located in our office, in the assessor's office, so we all share supplies. So our budget covers supplies for a lot of other departments when they fall short on their supplies and their supply budget.
Did we add to the supply line budget for your department?
I think we added maybe a couple $100 just to be on the safe side.
Yeah. $300 to be exact.
I'm not laughing at, I'm laughing with, because the office supplies, I mean, the assessor's office seems like one of those kind of important offices. Just thinking out loud here.
Yeah.
You know, you should be able to reach into your pen holder and pull out a pen and load the copier with paper and do the functions that you need to with the office supply.
I bring my own pens from home just so I don't have to use the office budget.
Another frugal office.
See me.
Yeah, we do printing for everybody else. I mean, it's just nickel and dime stuff. Nothing that we don't survive on, but it's just, if we had an extra $300, we could make sure everybody's happy.
Is $300 really enough?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Allison?
Yeah, at this point it is.
Okay.
I was willing to go to 500, but you'll take 3. I'm good.
Hey, Rick, you want to add another couple hundred? We'll take it.
Yeah. Who's the car salesman now? Eric Thomas.
Paul, I don't know if you have this number off the top of your head, but I mean, and I have the spreadsheet that you gave me that shows the numbers on a reval. And if anybody wants to see what that looks like right now without doing another year of sales, I'm sure Paul could show you that. But do you have a sense, like, how much of a shift from commercial to residential are we going to see? Do you have a total?
I didn't do that calculation, honestly, Eric.
Yeah.
I can.
Yeah.
And get you guys that tomorrow, but it is a shift.
Yeah. And we don't have a lot of data on, we don't have enough sales of commercial property really to do a thorough evaluation of the.
That's really our biggest problem with all the time with commercials. There aren't that many sales out there.
Right.
And Paul, just to piece, and I know that Claude would like a reevaluation. I know that I'd like one here at some point. Are other assessors waiting another year or so to do an assessment?
They all are.
They all are?
Yeah. The pandemic changed everything, honestly.
So we're in line with waiting.
Yes. yes, Winslow's waiting a year. I think, well, I know Freeport's waiting a year. I think Rockland's waiting a year. Yeah, we're all in the same boat. You know, we're seeing sales that are so dramatically different and so large an increase that we're not exactly sure that if it's pandemic related or if this is going to go on forever. So another year of sales would be very beneficial to our point of view.
And just so and I won't hold your feet to the fire, on average, 1/3 of the population stays the same, 1/3 increases, 1/3 decreases.
That's typical of any revaluation.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Frankie. And then Councillor Oliveira. Sorry, I just saw your hand.
Just to quickly follow up, Paul, are you anticipating that with the returning to normalcy as the pandemic winds down, that things will start to return to normal in terms of buying and selling property?
Well, that's what most people normally think, but it doesn't seem to be the case yet. There's still bidding wars out there. I was talking to a friend last week, this, 2-bedroom ranch in Sydney, 1.5 baths. The realtor said, this could sell for $199, and it was bid up to $260. But the appraisal came in at $199.
I was thinking in terms of commercial property that as people start to.
Well, everything I'm reading is, how to assess commercial property in a down market. So, and that's what's happening throughout the country. I mean, so I don't know how much it's going to affect here. I mean, we got a beautiful downtown, so, commercial property goes where people are buying, where the consumers are. So if we have a bunch of consumers out here, commercial property will do just fine.
Thank you.
Councillor Oliveira, then Councillor Thomas.
Thank you. So my question was about the commercial property. And my question is, okay, so you're saying that it's not going to go back to normal just quite yet, but then you said, but depending on the property here in Waterville. So my question is like, if commercial property doesn't go down, I mean, if we don't stabilize it going next year, what's going to happen to the resident? So that means the mill rate has to go up.
If your budget goes down. The mill rate is a reflection of your budget. Always is. So if you watch your spending, the mill rate will always will stabilize. But if budget increases are commonplace, then the mill rate has to go up to accommodate those increases.
Yeah, but we're going to need to have a revenue come in too. But because if we don't have enough commercial properties here, we're not going to be able to get that revenue for that in order for our budget to be stable.
Yeah, you need development at all times. The way this city runs, you typically need around $30 million new valuation annually to offset the increases in wages and health benefits. It's a lot of money. We don't see $30 million worth of growth annually. So where does it go? Has to go into the mill rate. There was a $30 mill rate in this town in 1990.
Yeah, I don't want to get back to a 30 mill rate. Councillor Thomas and then Councillor Pleatback. You're on mute.
To expand upon what Paul's saying, it's also the mill rate is also affected by valuation.
Of course.
And we can't. This is what's happening. The residential values have all gone up, but the only way for us to capture that valuation is to do a reval. There might be $30 million worth of new value in Waterville, but you can't capture it until you reval the properties. and that's as opposed to like a brand new $30 million building, you capture that revenue immediately because they have a tax bill. But unless you reval somebody's home, you're not capturing the revenue from that new value until you do a reval. And, honestly, the commercial market, I don't think anyone can tell you what's going to happen with the commercial market because, yes, we're coming out of a pandemic and the economy is improving, but there are also all kinds of businesses who have found out that they don't need thousands of square feet of office space because their employees worked from home this whole time. And they're like, well, why am I paying rent on all this space if I can just have them work from home? And this is why it's going to be important that we really are proactive about economic development, moving forward, so that we don't just end up in a downward spiral with our commercial properties.
To explain that $30 million annually, yeah, you can capture it in a reval from residential taxpayers, but their taxes are going to go up if you do it that way. I meant if you want to keep the residential taxpayers' taxes equal, you need $30 million worth of new growth to make sure that they don't see increases.
Right. And the mill rate, so the spreadsheet Paul gave me, if we do a reval, the mill rate goes down by what, 3 mills, Paul?
Yeah, I'd have to look it up again.
I think it was 2 to 3 mills. The mill rate actually goes down.
That was at a flat budget from last year.
Right.
You raise the budget and that mill rate's not going down.
But even if the mill rate goes down, people's taxes go up because their house might be worth twice what it was before.
That's a possibility. That's the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 thing. And, yeah, a third will see an increase because their assessments grew at a faster rate or a larger increase than the typical one.
And if you're somebody who owns, if you're looking to cash out, you're like, great, my house is worth twice of what it was before.
That's right.
But if you're somebody who's on a fixed income and you want to stay here in Waterville and live out your golden years, then that's not a good situation for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you look at Fieldstone Landing, for instance. We're seeing some incredible numbers up there all of a sudden. A 2-bedroom ranch with 2 bathrooms, nicely built, high quality. I mean, we have a sale there just a month ago or 2 months ago was $375,000. I assess that at full rate. That person's paying $10,000 a year in taxes, and that's a 55 and older community. So, how do retirees end up staying there?
Councillor Klepek, then Councillor Foss.
Yeah, this whole conversation is a pretty complex issue, right? I mean, the thing we're all dancing around here but not saying is that this dynamic is what leads to gentrification. If you have a revaluation, like what is driving property values in a community up? Is it the economic capacity or the financial capacity of the residents, or are there externalities in the community that are distorting the market? And that's certainly where we're at right now.
That's correct. It's out of state. It's with cash offers. Huge money.
Yeah, and so there certainly are people in the community that are going to be vulnerable to a valuation. One of the ways a reval in the community will affect the mill rate would be it would change the revenue sharing calculation, which is money that we get back from the state, and then that money does need to be made up from someplace. So even though it may have a downward pressure on the actual mill rate on the one hand, but as Paul said, it could still in real dollars increase the amount that people are showing out. There's this other consideration in terms of revenue sharing, and then the county tax bill that Waterville pays as well is tied to that number.
That problem is alleviated by a state valuation. Basically, we all do ratio studies annually that tell us where we stand from assessment versus sale prices, and they adjust our overall valuation based on that ratio. So if I'm at 90% and my value is $1 billion, the state will value me at $1.1 billion and do the calculations for state revenue sharing and county tax based on that. So we're all equalized. We can't have Sydney at 50% and Waterville at 90% and Oakland at 100% and then do state reimbursements based on those differentials. So what the state does is they equal us all out and then do their reimbursements.
I see. So we're not in a bubble, is what you're saying.
No, they won't change anything.
And they have a table of adjusted mill rates that factors all that in so that you can actually compare across towns for
Correct.
what the mill rate is based on 100% valuation across the board.
Yep.
If you wanted to do a realistic comparison, like you can't just compare Waterville's valuation to Oakland's to Fairfield's without doing the adjustments that Paul is talking about.
Councillor Foss. I'm sorry, Cleatback, were you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
All right. Councillor Foss.
I'm good. Never mind.
All right. Cleatback, you sure you got time? No.
Can we get
All right.
$200?
Anybody else have questions for Paul or Allison? I see none. Paul, thanks again. And I know that I'm constantly popping in your office. I don't know what you call that tangerine grapefruit thing, but it is fantastic and I appreciate it.
Paper next time too for him.
You're always welcome. We're an open book in here, and it's amazing stuff that we do produce.
I'll sneak you in some paper from the city manager's office. All right. Patty, who's next?
Jay will use his salary to buy you paper.
I don't care. I mean, for the $5,000 you guys give me, you can keep it.
The next department is the finance department, so I'll pull Aaron in.
Okay. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you.
Allison.
Hi, folks.
Hey, Aaron.
How are you?
Doing good.
Awesome. I'm happy to be here to present the budget for the finance department for FY22. The budget for labor is $74,848 more, and the non-labor is $5,425 more than FY21. The labor cost is more because, as you've heard, the 53rd week, the typical increases, and I'm asking for a finance clerk 1 position to help us with being understaffed. And the increase in the total non-labor cost, $5,425, that's an additional $4,000 in equipment to fit up the office for the additional person, so we can move a finance clerk 2 from where she is to work with the accountant. And the goal is to spread the wealth of work, so we're balanced, we're in better position, and we have bench strength if there's something major happening, like COVID, like we have to shut down for 2 weeks.
Anybody got questions for Aaron? Claude?
You're trying to figure out all of the budget's been a real challenge, but
Yep.
Does your office handle the auto registrations? Am I correct there?
We share many tasks with the clerk's office, so Patty could also speak to this. It's really it really depends on how many people are coming into the office and the flow, and how many really people are backed up, and it's first come, first serve, and it just goes down the line. So the frontline people could do a mix of tasks that span across the finance realm.
Okay, good. So what I guess what the part that I don't understand is how automobile registrations are in your department rather than in the clerk's department. Is that a state thing, or is that just the way Waterville operates?
Just really the way Waterville is set up over the years.
I see. But you're asking for the bookkeeper because that's one of the tasks that you find difficult to do and do the regular finance tasks?
Right. It would be more specialized to helping alleviate a lot of the work on the accountant, so she could offset some of the lower level stuff, and then she could take on higher level tasks that I could offset to her, and then I could work on other bigger tasks.
I see. So it just works up the ladder so that when I need a report on some obscure piece of the budget, you can just dash it off like that?
Yep. And approximately 8 to 10 years ago, there was a specific bookkeeper position, but it was deemed at that point to save some money to not redo the position. And it's been understaffed for a very long time. It's not that I'm asking for this lightly. It's a lot of thought and a lot of planning revolves around this position.
And if I may, I would just add that this position also impacts the clerk's department, because the person that does the assistance with bookkeeping currently is half-time on the counter too. So if the accountant is out, she's pulled away from the counter full-time.
Yeah.
So there's an ebb and flow there that impacts both departments. As Aaron just mentioned, that position used to be a full-time bookkeeper position. They cut the position and pulled a finance clerk half-time to do that position. So we've been short-staffed for years. And as I've said to the city manager, we're a hockey team with 5 players. We have no backup. When somebody's out, we're in trouble.
Yep.
And we experienced that more than once through this COVID period over the last 6 months.
Yes.
And it was a really heavy lift for that staff.
Yep.
Well, and if I just might say one more thing, Mr. Mayor.
Please do.
This is where I look at the staffing of the city, and I see problems, not at the top administrative levels, but down where the day-to-day workers are having to do double shifts and fill in for people and stuff. So this is one place where I'm happy to say that this is a hire that I would support.
And I agree with you, Claude. I think that our frontline people are the ones that get the most overworked. And burnout is a real thing that we are trying to avoid across all departments. And so, hey, we agree. We're good. Anyone else? Aaron, the only question I have, since nobody else got one, is you didn't sneak a pizza oven in on that $5,000, did you?
Well, I was just thinking the perfect place for a pizza oven is down in the basement, and we could call it the Elm City Pie.
Hey, not to worry, Aaron. Grub delivers.
Anyone else? I see none. Fatty, who's next? Aaron, thanks for coming out.
Thank you very much.
The city clerk's department is next, but I'm happy to defer to some of the other folks that have been waiting because I have to be here anyway. So if you'd like, I could skip to the IT department, if that's okay with the
Yep,
group.
I'm good with that. Go ahead.
So that would be Joel. So Joel, you are on.
How's it going?
Good.
All right. So you should have a memo that went out for the budget stuff. I don't have a huge increase, but I do have a little bit of an increase, mostly to get us caught up to where we need to be. Some software costs to replace some aging software that we've been using that really kind of needs to go away. Just not working well. And COVID has posed some challenges with working remotely, Zoom, that sort of thing. So some costs that we never really had before that are kind of new. And we've got a little bit of a bump in our revenue stream to offset that. But other than that, we've been pretty flat for the last several years, and I expect the next year to be pretty much the same.
Joel, how competitive are we? I know we do a lot of work for other municipalities.
Yeah.
How competitive are you with the private sector?
I would say we're a little less than the private sector, but for what we're doing, I think it's pretty close.
All right. Anybody else have questions for Joel? Joel, you were the easiest department.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Patty, we can let him go.
We can't hear you, Patty. You're muted.
My apologies. The next department is the engineering department. So I will go ahead and bring Andy in.
Did we just bring Aaron back?
Did I?
Think so.
Yes, I did. Okay, here comes Andy. My apologies.
Don't worry.
And I will move Aaron back in a moment. Okay, here comes
Steve?
Andy.
Before we get into the engineering budget, it's important for everybody to understand that last year and before that, this was referred to as the Economic Development Department. And because of that, there are costs in here under operating costs that are related to the Growth Council work, First Park, Chamber of Commerce membership, that sort of thing, that we decided not to move into a different area for consistency's sake from one year to the next. But I anticipate that next year we'll be showing those costs in a different budget.
Thanks for that, Steve. Oh, we got Andy.
Andy, can you hear us?
There he is.
Yeah, I can hear you. There I am. Can you see my antlers on the walls there?
Yes.
We can.
We can.
Okay. I just had to show them off. Okay. The engineer's budget basically is my salary and benefits, and there's maybe $3,000 or so in professional dues, memberships. I have to have 30 hours of class time over the course of 2 years, and sometimes you have to pay for that, sometimes it's free. Membership in the American Society of Civil Engineers, and miscellaneous supplies. I guess that's whatever I have to buy, which isn't much so far. So you'll notice in the benefit part of it, I was on my wife's insurance for the last 30 years, but she retires in the fall, so I have to jump into the city health insurance, and I've also signed up for the dental and eye insurance already, just because I'll be losing all that this fall also. So that's it for the budget.
Anybody got questions for Andy? Councilor Thomas.
I would just point out the $2,500 MIF expense can be removed because that was part of the funding that we voted on for Waterville Creates. So
Okay. Anyone else? I see none. I think Andy, again, another quick one. Thanks, Andy. And that is a true Mainer's antler, right? I mean, that is a very good setup.
If I had more time, I'd give you a tour of the house, but I don't want to show too many dead things on my first day here. So
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
The next,
Patty, who's next?
the
You?
next department is city planner, and that's Ann Beveridge. So I will
Okay.
pull Ann in. Ann, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Hi, everybody.
You're up.
Okay. I don't think I really have anything to say other than I work half-time. I'm paid for 20 hours a week, and my contract allows me to bank hours that I work beyond that 20 hours. So I now have quite a few weeks of banked time. I receive no benefits, by the way.
Questions? Councilor Frankie.
Well, I don't have a question. I just would like to point out that at the planning board meeting last night, there were more than 50 attendees. I notice that we've got 16 tonight, and most of those are here because they have to be here. We've got to do better, Mayor.
I agree. I think part of it is that people can watch us on TV. They have not. Steve, I have discussed it with you. Do we have anywhere in the budget so that we can start broadcasting those planning board meetings? I think for transparency's sake, it's important that we do that so residents have another opportunity to at least be a part of or see what's going on.
I agree with you entirely. We have not budgeted for that. We will work up a cost on it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Well, Ann, that was quick.
Okay.
Al,
Thank you all.
Thank you, Ann.
have a good night.
Thanks,
You
Ann.
too. Night.
Good night. The next department is the Health and Welfare Department. That's Denise Murray. So I will pull Denise in. Hi, Denise. Can you hear us? You're on mute, Denise.
Or not so much.
Denise, can you unmute so that we can hear you?
There I am.
There you go. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I don't know why I can't be seen, but anyway. My budget has, well, an increase. The pandemic has really been a wild ride, but so we kind of put in some funds because we really don't know what's going to be happening with the pandemic going forward, whether things are going to stay the same or we're going to get better. But we did put in some funds so that just for the unknowns, I guess, primarily in the general assistance portion of the budget, and the line item for emergency temporary housing. So that's the biggest increase area. But it should be noted that even though there's a big increase in the general assistance portion, it also increases our on the revenue side because we get 70% back from the state of Maine. And that's about it. There was just a slight increase in salaries and fringe benefits, but That's due to a few changes in the staff.
Anybody, Councilor Frankie?
So the big question for your department is the pandemic and what kind of support we're going to get from the state and federal government. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, we don't get any other support other than the 70% that we normally get from the state of Maine.
Anyone else? Councilor Klepak and Councilor Oliveira after that.
Hey, Mrs. Murray, while I've got you here, could you tell me who the public health official for the city of Waterville is?
No, I don't know who the public health official is. I know at one point Mike was working on that way back before the pandemic. And Steve, I don't know.
Oh, sorry, Denise, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Steve, do you have an answer for Councilor Klepak?
I do. It's the code enforcement officer.
Thanks.
Thank you for that.
I don't know why, but it is.
The code
Sounds like-
enforcement officer
sounds like
is the
something
public
changed.
health officer for the city.
I inherited this.
Sweet baby Jesus.
I can feel Mike's eyes rolling in the back of his head right now.
Mike's not
No
up this
medical
late.
training probably whatsoever. That's okay.
Well, he's responsible for enforcing all the city codes, which have a lot of health implications to them. So there's a logic to it.
Okay.
Councilor Frankie? I'm sorry, Councilor Frankie. I had Councilor Oliveira first, and I'll get back to you.
I have a question. How many temporary housing did Waterville provide this year?
Oh gosh, we had.
How much money and how much of that are we getting out of that 70%? How much of that are we getting back?
Of this current fiscal year?
Yes.
We had, as of May, we provided $264,423 in temporary housing. That's a lot of money because hotels are not cheap. And so we got 70% of that back, or we will get 70% of that back.
And my other question is do you have like any outstanding applications right now? Like, is there any other, is there more funds? Like, do we need to increase this fund? Because I understand that's a lot, but the homeless shelter, that situation it doesn't seem like it's going to be going down. So is this number going to stay steady next year? Because of the shortage of everything that's going on?
It's hard to tell. I'm hoping that the pandemic will be slowly coming to an end, and we won't be spending that much money. Although, homelessness is still homelessness, whether we have a pandemic or not. And we do have, some housing issues going on with finding, available housing and affordable housing.
Oh. Are you all set, Flavia?
Yeah, I think for now, I'm all set. I'm just trying to put numbers to my head.
Steve, I'm going to go to Claude, then I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Councilor Frankie.
Well, the homelessness issue is just one of those things that we're anticipating that the new committee is going to be able to address and get people into affordable housing and out of the homelessness routine. Let's find some homes for people.
Yes, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Steve.
Denise, I had a question. Do you think that what we were hearing from Paul earlier about the rising price of residential property in the city is having any effect on the homelessness we're seeing?
I guess I don't understand the question.
Well, is the high price of housing driving people into the street?
Oh, I mean, definitely. I mean, people can't find apartments that are, they're really, really expensive. So, yeah, it's a real problem.
So the price of housing is outdistancing the ability of our lower income people to afford it.
Exactly.
Councillor Green.
I'll just add, I mean, there are two pieces to this, and one is home ownership and not being able to pay the mortgage on a home, but then rental costs are also very high. So 60% of very low income people in Maine pay 50% or more of their rent, of their income in rent. And 30% is considered affordable. So I'll just say that again. So 30% of your income on rent is considered affordable, but 60% of very low income people are paying 50% or more. So that's where we are with the rental market in the state, and of course in Waterville too.
Anyone else have questions for Denise? Seeing none, Denise, I'm going to let you go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And last but not least, it's the city clerk's department. Basically, most of our budget is impacted by salaries and benefits. A very small portion is attributed to the actual operating costs. So our department revenues have increased this year, mostly due to marijuana licensing, about $18,000 increase. And our costs are reduced because of only one election this year. We had 3 elections last year. So there's always an ebb and flow to the city clerk's department budget based on the number of elections that we have, basically. So our costs have reduced by $4,300. Some of those reductions, if you will, were offset by the 53rd week. And my cat is trying to get a bug that's in the light fixture right now. Very dangerous. So we would have had more of a reduction if it weren't for the additional 53rd week. And we are increasing slightly overtime costs because we have the deputy city clerk covering a lot of virtual meetings. So that's straight overtime. So other than that, I think we do a lot with very little. There's a lot of things that come through our department, and we're a staff of 3. And one of the staff members that we have also assists with the finance department. So.
Any questions? Councillor Oliveira.
It's not a question, but it was just an observation that I got from looking at the revenues coming in, and the dog license that went up like a lot. And we also had the discussions last week about having dogs. And then I looked at this and I'm like, it's not normal to have an increase on dog license like that in 1 year.
Come here, this cat. I'm not sure why it's not a significant increase in the number of dogs, where I think we're doing a better job at we get notices from the vets of dogs being receiving rabies vaccinations. So we do follow up with those. It's not a significant amount of revenue. We get $1 per dog in actual revenue to the municipality. So it's not a huge revenue stream for the town.
Okay, now it makes sense. Because I have a dog, and as soon as I go to the vet, you guys send me a reminder, so that makes sense now.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did you just say you?
Job, but somebody has to do it.
Did you just say that you only get $1?
Yes.
Where does the rest of the money go?
to the state for, towards animal welfare programs.
Ugh.
That's in state statute.
Wish the state would let us keep more of our own money. Anybody else have questions for Patty? Counselor Frankie.
Whoops, you're muted, Claude.
Muted.
I would just like to thank you on behalf of the council and all of the residents of the city for the outstanding job you've done to keep us operating and informed during the pandemic. It's been an extreme challenge, and I think your department has just done a wonderful job about that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll share your sentiments with the staff as well.
Anybody else?
I like the cat.
My cat, it just wants to be on TV apparently.
Looks like the 9 Lives cat. Morris the cat.
I have 2 other cats you never see, but that one keeps strolling through.
Yeah, we're good with it. Anyone else have questions? If not, I think we're done. I'm sure there'll be a lot of debate next Tuesday, so we'll get there. We're all on the same team.
There are 2 other items that we need to cover. That's the capital plan and debt service.
All right, let's get to that. Sorry, Patty, I was trying to let you go.
That's okay.
We've included in this revised edition of the budget, a list of all the positions that have been added to this budget, and that's where the 14 positions comes from that was mentioned earlier. And that is a leading page. I think it's the second page into the budget document. And then after that comes our use of TIF funds, where I think you've seen this before, and you can see how we're proposing to allocate the TIF revenue that is coming in this coming year, and what the ending balances in the different TIF accounts is going to be after this allocation. It also shows down below the amounts of money that are being applied to different uses from the TIF revenues. And there's one category here for economic development agencies, and that includes KVCAP and Central Maine Growth Council, et cetera. And then another category here for economic development staff costs. And those are percentages of loaded staff costs that are being charged to the various TIF TIF accounts rather. And the percentages are listed there, as well as the positions and the amount of money involved. You go one more page further in the budget, and you'll see the capital plan as it stands right now. Unfortunately, it's only 3 years. We spent an awful lot of time working on the budget and putting in the form that you have been seeing it, and what and doing a lot of thinking and calculating about how to fund it all. We didn't get to the point of extending the capital plan out farther. And what you're looking at is the same capital plan that the council has dealt with for the last 2 years. We're just now in the third of it. The first column starts with the budget year that we're talking about. You can see that there's 1.3 roughly $1 million that are programmed for the airport and Public Works and the fire department. All of those are important costs to not just consider, but to approve, because they're largely maintenance of existing facilities that we want to be sure that we do maintain. The yellow image off to the right is just a quick calculation of how we would allocate a $5 million bond with the 1.3 million going to the capital plan, 1.15 million going to the downtown project. And that number, by the way, is new to this whole conversation. It is the implementation of the plan that I was speaking to you about earlier for paving the side streets and extending concrete sidewalks and granite curb throughout the revitalization project. There are limits because we don't want that number to get too high, but this deals with the core of it and creates that consistent aesthetic from the concourse and the library all the way over to Header Falls and a ways up Front Street. There are more plans that we have, more things that we're considering, but right now, that 1.1 million would go to that. And then what remains is, what's that, 2.6 million roughly for the road plan and implementation of that road and sidewalk plan that we have yet to make.
Councilor Thomas.
Steve, the 3 positions in Public Works and the 2 in Parks and Rec, those are not in the budget, are they? Like, those came up in our discussion. That's not in the budget that's been presented at this point. That would be additions to what we've been discussing, correct?
Everything that we've talked about is in the budget. And if you look at the positions added page, you'll see that the Parks and Rec, there are 2 new positions in Parks and Rec. In Public Works, there are actually 5. There's an error there. There should be 2 laborers because one doesn't cost us $61,000.
Right, but those, I thought those were added, those were suggested positions after our discussion last week.
I'm sorry, there was an interrupt in my audio. What did you say?
Those positions weren't in the budget when we discussed it with Matt.
That's correct. But we put them in here so that you can see what that picture looks like.
So they are current. How are those being funded then if they're in the budget?
It's shown right here. They're right out of the general fund. And those are not TIF funded positions.
Right, but where are those new funds coming from? We didn't raise taxes. Where is that money coming from? Is it?
Well, we increased.
Is it revenue sharing? What is it?
We increased our estimate of revenue sharing by $200,000 based on input that we got from our legislative representatives, and we have dipped into the fund balance by about $250,000.
And so I just want to be clear with everyone. This isn't a discussion that the Finance Committee has had yet.
Correct.
We haven't signed off on actually putting those in the budget that we're going to vote on. Those are positions that came up after our discussion with Matt about his budget. So I imagine we're going to be having a lengthy discussion about the necessity of those positions tomorrow at our meeting.
Right. Though the airport positions that you talked to Randy about are in here as well. I did that because I wanted you to be able to see the entire field rather than have something that I knew that you didn't know.
Thank you, Steve.
Councilor Frankie.
So that begs the question then, are all the new numbers going to show up in the rest of the budget that you've just put out today?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
they're all there.
So the numbers that I look at will be different than the total number. Total amount that we're spending will be different than the amount that we started with 2 months ago.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And the total amount of revenue is going to be different as well.
And as Eric said, Claude, we we haven't had that full discussion. It's sort of just in there so that you have a template of what might be expected. But again, we'll have that discussion tomorrow before we present it to you.
And of course, you know, you already know what I'm thinking, don't you, Jay? So you're going to be my voice in the.
I'm going to have you right on my shoulder, chirping in my ear. I guarantee it.
Times two.
I can only take one devil.
Too bad.
Councillor Green.
So presumably a lot of this is funded based on the increase in revenue sharing. Is that fair?
Yes, we started with, I think back at the beginning, we had 1.8 million in revenue sharing, and then we got word that it was going to increase to 2 million. Then we got further word that it was going to increase to 2.5. And the latest information we have is 2.7.
So we base that on funding that is negotiated in Augusta. That's not a great recipe for longevity.
Well, the argument, the debate that's going on in Augusta now is to fund at the full 5% of the original promise.
The 2.7 is based on 3.75%, so it could actually be a third more than that.
Until a new administration takes over, and then we could lose that funding. I've always been on the premise that that revenue sharing should be put into capital projects, not into man-hours operational costs.
And revenue sharing, in my opinion, to touch on what Claude said earlier, my biggest concern with lowering the mill rate or doing anything, and I've said this before, is really I want to wait until the next governor's race. I don't want to be dependent on the state. I think that as revenue sharing comes in, we should be able to use those funds to lower the mill rate if we need to. That's where, when I talk about lowering the mill rate, I agree with the both of you that it has to happen at some point. We have to do it responsibly. We must also, again, we have to stabilize our taxes. We have to have a rainy day fund. We must have an emergency fund. Once those things are in place, then we can do that. I don't want to have to worry about the state dropping revenue when there's another governor. So anything we can do to start building our coffers to make sure when that transition happens, we don't get bit in the butt. That's why I slow play that a little bit. I'm optimistic on our numbers. I think we're conservative in a lot of departments. But that when Claude talks about lowering the mill rate, I worry about that. The reassessment I worry about because I feel like it's the South End that's going to get hit the hardest come the next reevaluation. So I really want to make sure that when we start to talk about lowering the mill rate, we're doing so with all the actual real figures coming in and not what we project as coming in.
Mayor, I don't think it's going to be just the South End if we reevaluate in 6 months to a year and the property values haven't decreased and the interest rate hasn't increased to start driving that market back down to reasonable levels, way beyond where they are right now, where we've seen a 30 to 50% increase in property values. So we have to be very cautious of, I know we've thrown that word around, reevaluate, but if we reevaluate an inflated market, bills, it's not going to be just the South End affected.
I agree, and that's sort of one of the things I want to curtail. I do not want the burden to fall on residents. We need some of that to go over to the commercial property, and then any extra money that we as a municipality can create that does not rely on taxpayers, which is why I believe in some of this investment, is sort of like profit sharing with our residents. Claude.
You're going to see me and Claude agree more than one subject.
I'm okay with that.
I think we're right on the same page here, Rick. that I'm very concerned about all the extra hiring. If we're relying on revenue sharing money, that's a questionable thing in the future. I agree with Rick again that if we've got extra money, let's use it for capital things, things that we have been putting off spending on that we need to do. But letting up the size of the staff without knowing that we can continue to pay everybody's salary in the future, as the fire chief said, if his revenue projections don't come back right, he's going to have to lay off people. That's I really think we have to be very cautious about our hiring. That's why I've suggested that we postpone some hiring until we're absolutely sure where we are financially. Why I've opposed hiring some of the hiring suggested. We can dig ourselves into a deep hole if we're not careful, Mr. Mayor.
I don't disagree with you, Claude. And like I said, up until I'm not keen on using the added revenue sharing to higher positions. That money may not be there later. All the other positions that we have put into this budget do not rely on revenue sharing. They do not rely on any sort of extra COVID money, any sort of CARES Act money. It doesn't, none of, I don't want to use that money. I don't want to, the $800,000 that we may get next year really needs to go towards stabilizing and keeping that. So I'm in agreement with you guys for some of that. I think positions that are going to generate revenue are the ones that are the most important for us going forward. But go ahead, Eric.
Well, I just want to say it's a sad commentary on the way the state handles revenue sharing, because this wasn't meant to be, it was meant to be something you could rely upon, you know? And so, you know, the state needs to get on board moving forward that this needs to be a reliable source of revenue for municipalities, or just stop pretending that, you know, that this money is going to be there, get rid of it and bring back a local tax option, which is how it was before they invented revenue sharing.
And I'm sorry, Eric, I skipped over Rebecca. Ms. Councilor Green, did you have something?
I'm good.
Sorry about that. Eric started coming in. Anybody else have questions right now? Claude.
Just one last thing. So the bottom line, Steve, have we made any decisions about bonding yet?
No, that's in the Finance Committee's hands tomorrow.
And we'll be considering that concurrently, I think. I mean, because the budget does sort of rely on the fact that we're going to bond.
Mm-hmm.
So the plan was to put both things on the agenda. I'm not sure if we'll be quite ready for that yet, but we certainly need to act on a bond quickly after we act on the budget. Because the two, if we don't approve a bond, then the budget needs to be reconfigured.
Right, in a major way.
And again, the bonding, I want to make sure that people understand, is mainly going to roads. I mean, roads and sidewalks. We're not using that money to hire people. We're not using that money to do it. It is literally about the infrastructure of our community. Again, you guys used to have $250,000 in the budget for roads. An extra $75,000 a year pays for the bonding for doing those roads. And we will get 5 to 10 times more roads done than we ever have. I think that's how we get started on that portion of it. So I think the bond is very important for that. It will affect our city budget if we don't do that, but you're not going to get those jobs done. You're not going to get that infrastructure done either.
I also want to
Go
I
ahead.
just want to point out that there is, remember, we got the 53rd payroll week. That's $187,000 in this budget that won't be in next year's budget. There's also the $50,000 for the review of the staff job descriptions and pay range, which is in this budget that won't be in next year's budget. So there's almost $250,000 in this budget that won't be in next year's budget.
Well, two things quickly, just to respond, Eric. After we do the payroll study, the wages for all of the employees in the city are going to go way up because we're underpaying people. That's a whole another issue down the road. As far as the bonding, we're still looking at the $5 million figure.
Yes, to my knowledge, we are absolutely that is the figure that we are.
And we're still looking at your long-term schedule for bonding. Is that correct, Steve? So there's nothing new in terms of what we've already talked about.
No.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you.
You're welcome, Councilor Green.
Yeah. So just regarding the new positions on this this page, positions added, it looks like there are 2 airport positions and then the public work positions that were introduced recently. Is that right? And those haven't been discussed in the finance committee yet? Is that correct? Okay. So we'll be getting an explanation of why they're needed later?
Well, we kind of got that when they did the budgets, right? That's why they got added.
Steve,
So we already got
hear you. You're muted. Sorry to overtalk everybody, but I see Steve talking. You're muted, Steve.
Thank you. Literally half of these, the total of added positions, are the positions that came up when the door was open to the airport, Public Works, and Parks and Rec. Those weren't in the budget previously.
Right. Okay. I guess I missed that.
So yeah, when we had our discussion with Matt, there was some question about whether he had enough staff, and then which he should have had this discussion with Steve before, because we had opened the door to everybody to say, what do you need? And I don't think that discussion was had. And then subsequently that discussion, we sort of opened that door when we were having our budget discussion with Matt, but we have not, as a finance committee, discussed whether those are going to be included in the budget that we present to you next week.
Okay. So just one final thing. I mean, these new positions, just to be clear, would be coming from, there's a breakdown here, which I appreciate. So some of these positions are being self-funded through fees, and there are some TIP funds, but most of these would be coming from the general fund, which means they're dependent on taxes or revenue sharing, some form of income like that. Okay.
That is correct.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Foss.
Councilor, if I may, to the chair, what day will you present the final draft of the budget?
Well, it's gonna, we're gonna have our discussion tomorrow, and then it'll really depend on how long it takes Steve to do the work that comes out of that. If it's going to be included in the agenda, it has to be in the folder by Friday.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I can't speak for everybody else, but I'm sure that anyone on the finance committee will be available to any of you that have questions. So if you have them, start loading them up so that we can make sure that we can answer them for you before Tuesday's meeting. So that there's going to be a lot to unpack come Tuesday's meeting. So the more legwork we can do ahead of time, the better.
I have a question.
Bring it up.
As far as presentation is concerned, for the next council meeting, you're going to get the first look at the order for the budget, which is what you vote on. That will be in the budget, in the agenda packet. Do you want these 78 pages in the agenda packet, or do you just want an update in the budget folder?
I don't know. Patty would probably speak to that. I think it has to be, if the budget is what we're voting on,
But you're voting on the budget order.
it has to be tied to the order, right? Right, but the order references the budget. So whether that has to actually be in the packet or not, I can leave that up to you guys. But
Okay.
as long as we have the draft that includes what we're, that is clear about what we're voting on.
Okay. We can do that. We arm wrestle a lot.
Does a police officer have to deliver it to my door?
Listen, one page at a time, Claude.
We didn't see the cat for like 3 days after that.
Poor cat got scared.
Oh, sorry.
Any other questions for Steve at this point?
No.
Or we got anything else? Or
I think that's it.
Claude, if you want to call me tomorrow morning before I go to Finance Committee at 11 o'clock, go ahead. I'm willing to listen. Rick, same thing. Anybody else? Reach out if you have any questions.
Well, I wouldn't mind sitting and listening if you don't mind. Where's the meeting at?
City Hall.
City Hall.
Okay.
So, nope.
And yes, he can, technically speaking, any counselor can sit and listen. They just can't participate in the conversation.
Especially since we'll already have 3 elected officials in there.
If I come, I'll bring duct tape. For me and Claude.
If you ask Cleatback, it works for Browntail, so.
Cleatback, you gonna meet us there?
All kinds of stuff. I don't know. No, I don't think so. But
wise man.
Oh, by the way, before you adjourn tonight, I want you to know what an outstanding job the police and fire departments and now Public Works have done with disseminating information and posting locations regarding the browntail moths. They've been great, and they worked over the weekend to do it. So I commend them.
I think you guys have all done a great job. I think getting that, we just had the meeting Friday to declare the public nuisance, and to already have a rollout by Monday and Tuesday just goes to show that government does not have to be inefficient.
That's right. And I sent you a note late in the afternoon today that between the city's website and the police and fire Facebook pages, they've had 50,000 hits on the BTM information.
No, since we only got about 17,000 residents, that means we're helping other communities again.
Yep. Yep. And I'll be meeting with Fairfield, Winslow, and Oakland sometime either this week or next week to talk about a regional approach.
Oh, I like that.
And with that, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
Whew, thank you. All right. Everybody have a good night.
Later.
Bye.